nation, destroys our generation. I don't mind, I don't mind, I don't mind, I don't mind.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a long time. Trying to get some shake off the rust on this stuff here. Just about got everything set up here. Didn't really have a game plan per se, I guess, as far as what direction I wanted to go. But want to get some kind of streams going on here again. Be it meant, like I said, such a long time. I guess getting these things back going again. So yeah, just give me a minute or so and trying to load some things up. Do let me know, I guess, if the audios are a little too loud or anything like that. Appreciate that. I can adjust those accordingly. In fact, I might just turn it down just a little bit anyway. Everything seems to be going hunky-dory so far. Set up here, I guess, in 3ds Max program. Let's get this scene loaded up here. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. Kind of rain here a little bit. It's now kind of fell off there a little bit, and now it's nice and sunshiny. Not too muggy or anything like that, so that's good. Alright, so I got this. That should be better. Alright, let me go ahead and bring this over then. Alright. Cool. So, this is kind of a little bit of something been working on, I guess, for project with, along with partner in crime, I guess, with being James 76. Well known in plenty of the modeling communities, such as Enter 2003, NASCAR Racing 2003 season, which in fact this one it kind of entails as far as what I've been doing here. Now that I'm back in business, I guess, as far as video card happened to be the only issue I guess I was having with the system. It kind of fried on me, I guess, back last April, and since then, yeah, just been kind of diving right back into the things that I was doing, I guess, before that happened, and this happens to be one of the products that kind of taken on here. So what you're looking at here, this is a ground plane for a track known as North Wilkesboro, which has it's come into quite a bit of disarray as of late, and it's been in, for lack of a better way to put it, it's been a pretty strenuous, I guess, type of process, I guess, to try to preserve, I guess, what we all have come to know, I guess, with North Wilkesboro Speedway. That's a mouthful. So this is one of the ways, I guess, that James 76, as I mentioned earlier, is the one that's taken on this project of sorts to kind of, I don't want to say demoralize, I guess immortalize, that's the word I'm looking for, as far as the track, I guess, within a virtual simulation, that being, in this case, NASCAR Racing 2003 season. So this is a ground plane here, and it kind of doesn't show up here. I can render this really quick, just kind of give you an example. So this is the ground plane. This is a satellite image, and it's relatively 4K as well. Pretty high res satellite image of the track from, I want to say, at least 2017. So it's it's approximately 2 years old, and it pretty much well depicts, I guess, the best case scenario, I guess, for trying to preserve, I guess, what's left of it. Because as it sits right now, as we speak, there's plenty of the buildings in that are starting to really decay, as far as the roofs are caving in, things like that. So there's not a lot of, you know, to pick at, I guess, if you will, as far as to try and use it at this moment in time. So again, as I said, it's just like it's becoming a kind of a strenuous, you know, type of thing to deal with. I guess is try to preserve as much of that track as possible before it falls too much to the wayside and we don't have anything left. So this image here, the satellite image that we have at our disposal, to include cloud point data, which would be at LiDAR, we have a lot of this information at our disposal right now. So that's what we're taking advantage of, what we have readily available to us. Not that that information would necessarily go away, you know, as far as, but trying to be able to maintain, I guess, the integrity and the historical factor, I guess, of anything of the track before it gets too far gone. Because as it is right now, you can still go to the site. It's still, a lot of the structures and the grandstands or whatever are still there. It's just very much in decay. And it's sad to see that go, but we're going to try and preserve this. The whole moral of this story is to preserve this historical track as much as possible within the virtual world. And like I said, in this case, at the bare minimum, via the NASCAR Racing 2003 racing simulation. So, what I've got on this here, what I've primarily gotten this ground plane down for with the sat image of the track, is to lay down the pit stalls. As far as the pit stall lines, you can kind of see in here. If I highlight these here, you might be able to see them a little bit better. We have these in two parts. I have these lines, which is more or less what I'm going to keep here. These are the lines that I'm trying to create, I guess, for the track, which are going to outline the pit line boxes within our track that we're building in the sandbox utility for NASCAR Racing 2003 season. So, something I really wanted to, you can really get a sense here, what this LiDAR data that's been applied to the actual geometry of the track. These lines that are on here, to include these two lines anyway, this line here, and these vertical lines, I guess we'll just call that. These two sets of lines here that I've got down here, that's based on the actual geometry of the track. So as far as the elevation that's in the track, you can kind of see if I put this, how it's got a slope on this here, and there's air, I guess you could say, dead space in between the ground plane, which is at 0, 0, 0, 0, and these lines here are actually following the contour, the actual elevation change of the track. So it really gives you a sense of how much elevation change there is on one end of the track to the other. It's relatively 0 on this end, and it's up on this end. So when you're, consider, if you will, this is our start-finish line. if anybody knows the history, I guess, of this track, what you have is the start-finish line here. Turn 1, going into turn 2, you go uphill, going down the backstretch, and then back downhill, coming out of turn 4, back to the start-finish line, past the pits, down to turn 1. So you can see that elevation in here clearly. So it's kind of really, really cool. And this is something that James has already taken the liberty of applying that LiDAR data, that cloud point data of the track, the elevations and what have you, to the geometry of the track, and already has that in here. And that's what this is based on here. I do have, I might have took it out of this scene in particular, but I think I might still have the DAE of it. Let me see here. Let me check my, I got a plethora of things on here that I've been playing around with ever since they've gotten the video card back going again. So I may or may not still have the DAE of that. And if nothing else, what I can do, I can do this. Just to kind of give you an idea. So what I'm loading here right now is 3D SimEd. And what I'm going to do here is load our actual track. So I'm going to import this. Navigate to that. And just got to remember where I have it. Third party. Lots of track builds in here. So as I said, James 76 has taken the liberty of taking on this project, and I've been very well graced, very privileged, I guess, to be able to assist, I guess, in this track build. It's part of our ongoing ventures, I guess. With all right, so I'm going to load this one here. This is what I've set up. No, we don't have any TSOs really in it. Okay, so what I did here to create the DAE format of this track, so I could export this out, is to load this up in 3D SimEd, and this loads the geometry of the track. Now, this pink that you see here, this magenta color, that's defining just the pit road area. Okay. So what I've got laid out, I've assigned a specific texture on that area of the track, because that's what I want to isolate, right? So I'm going to go through this process here. I think I might have already deleted the DAE because I've already got the information they need, but I'm going to kind of refresh everybody as far as the process that's involved, I guess, as far as creating a DAE format 3D mesh to bring into 3ds Max of a track geometry for NASCAR Racing 2003 season. So I'm not going to go through all the details as far as the settings and all that, but just to kind of give you an idea here, this is, you can see the geometry, how this is here, how it goes uphill. This is the turn 3-4 end. This is the turn 1-2 end. Start finish line is roughly right here. This is the back stretch, and you roll that uphill. So I guess it's showing in 3ds Max here. So this is the same geometry that we see in 3ds Max. Actually, I got it this way, so if I put it in this orientation, this is the same thing that you see. Keeping in mind that our ground plane here is at 0, 0, 0, 0. There's that elevation here, and you see that same elevation here. So this is what I've been able to pull out from the 3D mesh, the DAE format from 3D SimEd here. So I'm going to go through this process here, like I said. So this is imported. I'm going to go ahead and export this. So I'll go to export, plug in export. Make sure this is on DAE, and you can name this whatever you'd like. I'll just keep it at this name. This is just it's spawning the name of the actual PTF that I loaded. Yeah, so it's just loading that. So I'm just going to keep that the same for the purpose of this example or this demonstration. So I'm going to save that. Say OK to all that. I can close this out. We're good to go there. Now I should have that on my desktop right here. This is our DAE of what I just exported. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is import that into 3ds Max, and this should load right where it needs to be. So if I import, let's go like this, desktop, point to that file. All this here, I can leave this all alone. I don't need to edit anything on that. I'm just going to do OK, and I'll get a little warning thing here, which is normal. no big deal. And here we go. That's the geometry of that track. So again, you can see with the ground plane being at 0, meaning that it's no elevation or anything applied to it, it's completely flat. You can see that elevation there once again. So this is the 3D mesh of that track that I exported from 3D SimEd of that, and that's based on the geometry that's in the sandbox utility. And I can show that too. I'm going to load that up while I'm thinking here. Let me go ahead and load that up too. That one right there is actually in the game directory. We'll get back to that in a minute. So we're going to go right into here. And we're going to load this same PTF that we loaded up in 3D SimEd. So this will load up Sandbox. This will take a minute. Alright, we'll give that a minute to load up. Actually, that should be good to go. And keeping in mind that 32 Sandbox is a very buggy program. It does tend to want to crash, hesitate. It uses a lot of resources as far as memory and stuff. So you do want to have quite a bit of memory on your system if you do run this program, because it does have the tendency to want to crash quite a bit. I think our music might be a little loud. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. I feel like I'm talking over it. I don't want to do that. Okay. Wonderful. I'm just checking everything, make sure everything's going good. Alright. So here's our track. This is the Northworks Build track, and this has the same ground plane, the satellite imagery. You can get a better view of that. So you can see all the green and blue lines. It's very minimal at this point, at this stage of the game, as far as like it's not very detailed, if you will. The only thing that's really there is the racing surface, and the pit road is what we're going to focus on primarily in this session during this live stream. So yeah, these green lines represent the F sections, which are the track textures for the track surface and whatnot, to include the pit road, and the blue lines are our wall sections. So we have our interior walls with the appropriate brakes and what have you. We also have some fencing. In fact, I'll bring up the camera view here. So we're kind of like in the middle of the track here. So yeah, we got some grass, and you can see there's some refinements that still need to be made to the track for sure. It's not 100%. The racing surface has been the main focus point, as far as at this stage, just to get that down. Everything else has not necessarily been refined yet. Like the infield, you can still see there's some gaps, what have you, in here. Not the big deal at this stage. Those will all be refined as it progresses here. But you can see this pink texture, this magenta texture that I've applied to the pit stalls to highlight that area in specific. And I can probably show this further process in order to get this area isolated. So I could get the pit lines, I guess. And these here are temporary. I started laying those down as kind of a guide. What I had done, just to give some clarification on here, I took the SAD image, and right now I have the textures turned off as far as the world underneath. So I wanted to lay those lines down loosely to get where those need to go. I just did that it was pretty quick. It wasn't too much of a big deal. But I can turn on the world underneath, and that shows that pink texture there. So what I basically had done was gone back and forth in between each of these here, as far as turning that on there and laying these lines down independently. And the way I did that is because, as you can see, when you toggle back and forth between these two views, it tends to remove your TSD view as far as laying down your track surface decal. So what I did, and again, just to kind of briefly summarize, I guess, as far as I did here, I opened up the linear guide to use that as a point, and I just stretch this out a little bit. This is our sandbox ruler, if you will. So what I did was I went in between here. I would lay this out, and this is kind of the traditional way. I wanted to kind of show this. There's more than one way, I guess, to go about this, right? But the main reason I want to create a 3D model of these pit lines, particularly these lines, is because of the fact that the track in the game itself, it tends to want to breathe, and using that term loosely, meaning that these lines that you place down here as track surface decals tend to want to separate themselves, I guess, from things like you know, the other line, you know, like your F sections. So like this F section here would tend to want to separate from these TSD lines. So in order to get rid of that, so that doesn't happen, when you create a 3DO of that based on a texture, you know, on the actual geometry of the track, you won't have that. You won't have that breathing, I guess, that necessarily presents itself of the track. So this is part of the reason why we do it this way. You can necessarily do it, and this is kind of what I did initially, just to kind of keep it in perspective as far as which bay's better or not, which more optimal. So this way right here, these are TSDs. So if I go back into track surface decal, which is a TSD view, you can see these are all laid down by TSD. And that's just a MIP file that's brought into the track as a TSD, track surface decal, and you size it to what you want via the parameters. In fact, here are the parameters for that piece there. So this is 5.5 meters. Everything is in meters for sandbox, to include Enter 2003 itself. So 5.5 long and 0.25 width, you know, the wide. So it's, and then set the rotations up there, but basically had gone through with the linear guide. If I go back into geometry view with the textures off, so I can see that SAT image, and you can see the line that's already been applied out here for this outside edge of the pit road, the pit stalls, I should say. And then just line this linear guide up with each of these lines, like so, so you know where the lines are, so that when you bring back the track surface decal view, you have that linear guide that's right here. It's kind of hard to see with that already in place, but you can see with this linear guide, and the only way I can move that linear guide is to be in geometry view, so we'll just pull it off this way so you can see a side by side, so I have it right next to it. With the line not there, it's a little bit easier too, so like if I just pull this over like that, I can show you. So like you can see that line right there, so we would know where to place that TSD as far as to be a one-to-one representation of where it is on the SAT image as compared to in the track geometry itself. So this is the traditional way of being able to, and it's not wrong. It is more conventional, more traditional, I guess, as far as applying a TSD texture, I guess, in that fashion. And I've already gone through and done that whole process throughout the entire pit road in that fashion, just to kind of show that method. The method I'm going to focus on the most is, as I mentioned, you know, as far as creating a 3DO, a 3D object of these lines in an object that is going to represent this entire pit road, but it's going to have these lines, and that's what's representative in here. So let me go ahead and hide this. This is the track geometry. This is what I pulled that out. One thing I did want to show, kind of jumping all over the place here, how I isolated that with that magenta texture in there, how I isolated that area of the track that I want to, so I don't have to go through here and manually try to figure out, I guess, where these areas are on this track geometry, you know, on this model mesh. The easiest way to do that is I can bring up the material editor in 3ds Max here and basically use this little eyedropper like so, and just basically left click on that, and it's going to, every texture assignment that's in this track geometry will list in this is all spawned in here. So what I need to do is the texture that I use to create that magenta, you know, to outline and isolate where those pit stalls are, I named it concrete pink, which is this right here, which has an ID of 8. Okay, so I'm going to mentally remember that as far as what that one is. And then what I'm going to do while this is highlighted, I'm going to go into polygons, and right here under the, this is may or may not be kind of hard to see, but in your polygon rollout here, it's surface properties. You have a section in here that has all your texture assignments. Same thing that's in the material editor, right? So you want to look for 8. And if I highlight that, all this area here that's now highlighted, that is that magenta. That I had isolated. So if I go back into here, all this magenta, that's what is going to be highlighted. That's that texture that I assigned to that area of the mesh. So what I can, in a sense, do from this point is all that highlighted by that material assignment, I can detach this. And I'm gonna go ahead and go through this process. So that's detach that from that track mesh. And then what I'm gonna do is deselect that and hide this. Now there's that. All the pit stalls that have that texture assignment is right there. And then from here, what I did was I further isolated out the texture, the lines that I didn't need. In this case, all I did was take out. If I can go into the mesh here, so what I did was just highlighted out all that, and that was a little bit of a process there, to be honest, as far as to get just the. I think that what this is doing is it's overlaying what I've already got there. Let me hide what I've already got there. So these two. Yeah, let me hide those. Let me see what I got here. So you may be able to see this a little bit better. Okay, why is it not? Let me try. Yeah, I think what I do is I got my F2 in there, and I'm going to push that there, but it's basically highlighting those. So basically what I did is I went through and in this case here, I went through, and I'm just kind of summarizing, I guess, what I had done previously already. I had gone into my selection here, and I'd gone into this paint, like this, and just painted all those polys that I don't want, and I just kept this line. And then from there, I used the references for those lines that I already placed manually, based on those lines. So it did help a lot. Quite a bit as far as to have those in there as well. And that was the basic premise for being able to apply those. I'm trying to see if that does show a second here. Yeah, I think the only reason why it's showing it this way here is because I've got the F2. The problem is if I push the F2, that's going to change in my scene. I don't want to do that. So yeah, the fact that this is usually a solid color if you use the F2 key. If you've got those shortcuts, that exist in 3ds Max or whatever, you can basically show that entire poly. But it's looking like in this, I'm not sure why though, that should be in there. I gotta double check my work here. So the PTF that I opened, yeah, it should have had that in there. That's what I'm checking here. It should have had these lines in here. That's what I'm checking to see. That's interesting. Alright, I'm just gonna check some things here. Yeah, it should have had those TSDs should be showing up in here. But as I look at this, I'm not seeing that they are. And it may necessarily be, now that I think of it, because I did not assign. That's exactly what it is. So the fact that, again, what's representative in these polys are just that that concrete pink, the magenta color, what have you. That's what's represented in these polys here. So it's not going to have, it's not going to have the these TSD lines because that's not on the same texture. Yeah, so that's clearly what's going on here, which is not a problem. Really, when you think about it, that's what I did from here. As far as being able to put the lines down. I think that's what I did. I'm trying to remember now because I did a lot of this really quick. As far as off stream here, and came to the conclusion. This is why I wanted to stream this, because I kind of wanted to show the process that's in here. So I know one of the things I did do for sure was to narrow it down to just this F section. And again, that's going to have all that height data in it, you know, as far as the geometry of the track or whatever. So it's going to follow the contour of our track geometry in the sandbox utility here, right? So that's what we want. So basically what I did, and that's what the ground plane is in there for, is to isolate out all those polys with exception to this outside edge of the pit stalls, which again, if you go all the way down through this, you can see this is these polys right here. That's that outside edge, which would be, if I zoom in on this, it might be kind of hard to see because it is pink, but this edge right here, you can see where this dark edge, that's the paint line for the outside edge of the pit stalls, right? And that's what's representative in here, because it has that same concrete pink texture applied to it. So this has the entire stall in here, with exception to the individual lines, you know, to outline each pit stall, each pit box, is what we're trying to get in here. So I know I feel like I'm like a broken record and repeating a lot of things, but just to try and make sense of this whole process, that's part of the reason why I guess I do that. So I've already done all the work as far as to remove all the polys and narrow it down to just what we need, and so that part's already done. And I can kind of show this really quickly. It's not that hard to do, really. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on here, and we're going to select while in polygon selection.
Open the world of music. A new
Oh, I gotta
music
love
streaming
ads.
service,
Okay,
where
so
all the
I'm going to
ways
highlight
music
all
moves
these
you
polys that I don't
are
need,
together in one place.
and maintaining those that outside edge, painted edge.
Official audio and video,
So I'm just going to paint all these polys.
artist radio, live performances,
Like
covers,
so.
remixes, and the rest of the story you
And like I
can't
said,
find anywhere else.
Mine not, you know, don't mind, I guess, the fact that it's
all
not
here.
showing it's not filling the entire poly as I select these, because it's just my the F2. If I were to turn that back on by pressing the F2, it would show that fully. But again, like I said, I don't want to do that because I know it'll change my scene as far as the streaming software, so I don't want to do that. So bear with me on that, if you will. So I'm just going to take all these polys out. Highlighting all these polys. So we don't need these as part of the object, at least anyway. So now with all those selected, delete those out. Oops, I missed a couple here. Do some cleanup here. Need to grab them. Alright, so all I have here at this point is just that outside painted edge of the stalls. So from here, what I can do is I'm going to go to top-down view, like so. And what I can see here, and I'm just going to... the best method to do this here, like because it's a curved pit road, you want to start on one end and kind of work your way around. You can start on either end. It's kind of personal preference, if you will. So what I do from here is based on the SAT image. I know it is kind of blurry in here, but I can render this, right? And I can see where that line's at. What I can do, and this is what I did do, I have not figured out yet as far as how to get the image clear, I guess, and you know, as far as the ground plane and the perspective view. I know there's a way to do that. I just haven't figured that out yet. It's been a while since I've had to do this, so bear with me, I guess, when I do this. So basically, what I do is create a plane, and I'm going to make some adjustments here. Okay, just like this. I'm going to put this to 1. This to 1, because we don't need any more segments or width segments, height or width segments more than that. Okay, so we're just going to set that way, and then from here I'll just go ahead and drag this out, and I can adjust this width and length or whatever appropriately over here. So we want And this is all in meters. This is the same as it is in Sandbox as far as the TSDs, right? So what I can do from here is I can adjust the width. It's a little bit backwards in here actually with the orientation I got here, but that's fine. So I can adjust this one here, and that's just using common sense here. So the length is actually showing currently at 0.41, and the width is at 6.07. So that kind of gives you the idea. It's 6.07 this way, and the length in this case, so like that. That's probably just the way I stretched it out, which is not a big deal. That's not relevant, to be honest. What we do want to do in this case, with what we do know to be true, we want this to be 250. That's what we did the TSDs. That'll put that at the same size in Sandbox. If I go back to the TSD view here, right? So if we look at the properties of this, we made these 0.250 wide and 5.5 long. So we're going to do the same thing in this one here. So we're going to make the width in this case 5.5. And we'll just put a 0 and enter that. So that's the same size as the TSD in Sandbox, doing it the traditional way. So we got our plane that we're applying to the 3D model, I guess the same size as our TSD in there. From here, what you can do is orient this where you need it to go, like so. And then what I do find myself necessary to do is I have to put it in place and render it to see how close I am to that. That's the only, without being able to clear up the ground image. The fact that I can go into the render like this, I can see how far I'm off and just adjust accordingly. So it's a little bit of a process there, I guess, as far as to do that. But once you get that all into place, which like I said, I've already gone ahead and done all that, then you have, whoops, I'm gonna make sure let's back that up. I moved the ground plane, I don't want to do that. Okay, so after I rendered there, you see how close I was, and I really do wish there was a better way, I guess, to show you, I guess, as far as how this goes. I know this is necessarily the process that I went through to get all these lines in place, so you can see how much that's off. And then basically what you can do once you get it into place is you can snap that edge. I gotta rotate this a little bit. I want to show at least this one. Just kind of get it perpendicular with that line. And go ahead and render it. Yeah, it does appear to be a tad bit off in the first place anyway. Not sure what happened. You kind of get the idea though. Okay, so I'll go over here. Kind of get the idea as far as what's happening here. And then what's really nice too is once you get one of them positioned, you can basically just clone this line, and I'll show that as well. So once I get this one into position and snap that to this line here, you'll kind of get the idea. So I need to render that again. Oh, hopefully my music didn't stop. Got this on a royalty-free techno. It's a 8-bit. Yeah, so hopefully that keeps going there for a while. I shouldn't have any worries with it muting the VOD or anything like that, because it is royalty-free stuff. Love it. So that's pretty much in the position there. Need to rotate that just a little bit more. Okay. But you get the sense of what's involved with this. And by doing it this way, I know it seems pretty tedious, I guess, to do it this way. You're going to get a true representation of these lines based on the geometry. Because the other tendency that TSDs tend to have, especially with geometry, when you have the elevation changes, they tend to want to, bleed in and out of the actual track geometry. The spline, I guess, of the track, the spline geometry of the track. and you don't want to. You want to eliminate that, and the one way to do that is to make the 3DO representation of the track as we're doing. So that's one advantage. You know, even though it does seem a little bit tedious and time consuming, even a little bit, with a little bit of patience, just like you would, I guess, as far as laying them down in the traditional way via the TSD that I showed earlier, this is a much better representation of the actual things of this nature. So that's part of the satisfaction in it as far as doing it this way. So let's not discount that. So let's go ahead and render this again. That is looking pretty darn good to me. Alright, so I'm still trying to figure out why this ended up being off here a little bit. Because this is our geometric line. I think my ground plane might be off just a tad. Because this line right here, which represents the geometry, should be lined right up with that. So the fact that that's off a little bit, like I said, I've already done all this before, so I might have thrown something out of whack when I loaded the scene back up again. That's necessarily possible. I totally see that's possible. But yeah, this line here, that's actually the satellite image, should line up directly, I guess, with this geometric line that this is our imported 3D model. So those should line up more than they are actually showing here. So that's going to be a little bit off, but like again, you kind of get the idea. The one way you could correct that, I guess I can kind of show that. I may have, when I did the ground plane up here, I didn't measure it 100% precise, so it's probably off just that smidget. What I did do, I guess, to create this ground plane, this kind of goes back into how you bring your background image into Sandbox, is using the linear guide based on known measurements that are in, say, like your Google Earth, or however you're acquiring your image, your satellite image. So if I go back to this, let's just say, for example, we're refreshing at this point. So we're gonna go back into geometry. Okay. Now we have the sat image overlaid, I guess, all with the geometric splines, the blue and green lines and what have you. So the way you would do this, as far as to bring the ground plane into 3ds Max, is, like I said, much the same way that you would bring your background image into Sandbox. You would take measurements, based with a linear guide in this case, and basically what I did, and I'll go through this process here. Why not? So you take the cross section, so be it the length of the track this way, and pick a known point on the image, at least anyway. And by known image, I'll use the outside wall as a guide. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this white box from the linear guide right on the outside edge of that wall. Okay. And same thing on this end. So I'm going to zoom in here. Put that on the outside edge of that wall. And this one has a fence and actually a concrete wall, so. Alright. Known points. And that measures out to be 355.66 meters that way. So what I would do, you take a mental note, write out on a notepad, just remember that number, however you want to do it. Go into 3ds Max, in this case. And what I'm going to do is create a plane. Create another plane. And I already have this on here, but I'm going to go through the process again. Much the same way. So I'll go plane. And I've already got it on 1-1. Cool. What I'm going to do is just kind of really loosely. And as long as you don't step on the plane modifier, as for like this, you have the option of being able to change the size of it this way. So in this case, we need our width, because of the way we laid this down here, to be, let's go back in here again, 355.66 meters. Okay, so we're going to put that same value into our width here. So 355.66 meters. that adjusts to that size. So we got that dimension. Now the other dimension we need is the, I can already see that's off. Interesting. Okay. We're gonna go. We'll keep going on here. So we already see that's what that is. Oh, I know what's going on. Okay. Yep, we're gonna continue this process. So now I'm gonna take the cross section of the track this way, and again, known points. So we're gonna pick outside wall of this point here. Where's our? There's the end of our linear guide here, and you can drag these pretty easily.
My name's Jesse.
Gotta
My dream
love
is to
ads.
build a decked-out music studio in my basement so I can jam
Apologize
with
for
my
the
kids.
ads.
But audio equipment can get pricey.
With the State
So we're
Farm
gonna
Bank
go
Money
ahead and
Market
put
Savings Account,
that
you can make saving for that
right
dream
there.
studio a reality.
Give State Farm a plug there. Yeah, I love it. I don't even know if that stayed on the same channel. I think it is. Let's skip that. Oh, it's still on there, which is yeah, I think that is the same. Okay. Yeah, I apologize for the ads there, folks. Wasn't intentional. I guess that's just an added bonus. I guess if you want to look at it that way for your listening pleasures. Okay, so we're gonna put this on the outside edge here. I'm gonna try to get this as straight as I can. Yeah, it's kind of on an angle, so I'm just gonna kind of straighten this out a little bit. Kind of dissect that start-finish line that's on this side of the track. Okay. And then just bring that to outside edge of that wall there. So that measurement ends up being 195.09. So again, if we plug that into what did I say? 199.09. So that should be the size of our area that we need there, and that's still at 0. Should be anyway. Is it not? It's not. Okay, so I'm gonna zero this out, and again, this is a refresher course. And then if you want to zero out your model down in these parameters down here, as far as your XYZ coordinates, if you want to zero that out, you just right-click on these, and that zeroes it out. So that's at 0, 0, 0. Okay. So I can already see there's somewhat of an issue already. Be it the plane that I've got down here is actually longer this way. So I might have made a boo-boo, I guess. Okay, well, good thing we're going through this. I did do this very quickly too. So trying to get back into it. So we got, let me double check our measurements here. Let me check this again. So we have, let's see here. Let me see here. So what we did, yeah, let's measure this way. Let's double measure this. I'm really curious as to how I got that. I might have just read that measurement wrong. And I'm only human in that fashion. Humans do make mistakes. This is probably a good way to double check the work. Okay. Alright. So we do have, I don't know how I measured it before. Now I got 376. Yeah, that's 376. So that sounds about right. Just remember from measuring, yeah, it's 376.02. So that's basically 376. That sounds more familiar to me as far as just recalling memory. And again, I didn't touch on the modifier for the plane, so I still can adjust the size. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set this to 376. Yeah, that number does necessarily ring. That does ring a bell to me. Yeah, so that was the original plane. And just to kind of show... Oh. So this way, whatever looks a little bit longer. And that might be what's probably more off. You can see how it's clipping into it. They're both at 0, 0, 0, but you can see that's the same size. So if I lift this up, you can see that's the same length now. It is a little bit wider this way, which is not a big deal, but that's probably why it's off a little bit, because I didn't measure it 100%. I could easily, in fact, let's do this. We can make ourselves a new plane. Let's make sure we zero this out. Let's go ahead and do this. We're gonna remeasure, just to double check our measurement this way. Hopefully you're getting the point of this as far as how you get that in there. You want to take whatever measurements, wherever you're measuring to and from on your image, that's what you want to measure your plane, your ground plane for. At minimally. So I'm putting that on that outside edge of the fence, or the wall there. And also down here. Right there. And that ends up being, yep, it's about the same, 195.09, so yeah. Might be a meter or two difference. So yeah, in this one, yeah. 195. And we'll do this. So that's probably. So yeah, now I can necessarily see. Oh, ads! Come on, please. Skip it. We don't want that. Enough of the ads already. Hopefully we don't have that all the entire stream. That would stink. So yeah. So now basically what I have here. So it was probably a meter or two off, you know, as far as my initial measurements there. So it should be still about the same, right? So you get the idea here now as far as like how I came up with that size for the ground plane initially. And then basically once you get that ground plane in there, you don't have your texture on it yet. You would have to go into, let me go ahead and hide this plane. This is our, right, let's see if I'm hiding the right one. Man, which one did I hide? Hold on. Just a minute here. So I've got 2 planes in here. At least I should have 2 planes. I got 3 planes in here. How did that happen? Oh, that's right. One of my planes is the, it's like, what the heck's going on? So plane 1, that's our original ground plane. So I'm going to hide that. There we go. The other plane is that mocked up TSD line that I made. That's right. So this one here, we want to apply a texture to it. Right? So I can show this process too. So I already got this material in the scene, which I did. Where did it go? Oh, it must have reset that because I was on this sphere when I brought that. Oh man, when I did the eyedropper. Yeah, I already see what happened now. So it stepped on that texture I had assigned in here. So hold on a second. Let me bring our original plane back. Yeah, I stepped on that when I did the eyedropper. Gotta make sure you're on the right sphere, I guess, when you do that. That's probably a good point. So yeah, let's bring this back in. So the texture that's on this one. Okay. Yep, still got that in there. Okay. Yeah, this is probably a good point. Bring it up here. I don't need that. Oh, that's gonna multi-sub object. Oh yeah, that's. I see what it did now. Let me see if I can put this back to standard. There, I think. I know exactly what I did. Like I said, I was on the sphere when I did the eyedropper, when I brought the track mesh in. So it stepped on that and made it a multi-image, multi-sub material. I didn't necessarily want that, but that's fine. So what I did was basically just turn this back to standard. I'm going to bring that texture back in here. again. And I need to go to that image, which should be, I just gotta find my folder. So many projects going on, I'm telling you. Okay, so it should be in here. So here's our image there. So now what I can do, I'm just gonna go ahead and sign that. So the mapping should still be there. Okay, which one did I apply that to? That's the plane 3, so that's our new plane. Okay, and then I just want to select plane 1. Just make sure that's still assigned to that one. Okay, so the mapping should still be in our original plane, so I'm going to still go ahead and hide plane 1. Cool. This is our new plane, ground plane. Trying to show, I guess, that, how to get that applied on there. So probably what you want to do at this point, the material's already applied to it, but obviously it's not mapped. So I still gotta unwrap it, a UVW unwrap. So what I'm gonna do from this point is go ahead and convert this to knittable poly. Just kind of change the modifier. We got it the size we need. So I'm gonna do an editable poly. Now material's already applied to it. Now from this point I can apply an unwrap UVW. Open up the editor for that, and then it should spawn that texture, which it does. And then from here, be it the fact that it's not a really complex model, as far as like it doesn't have any abstract shapes or anything to it. It's just, you know, pretty much just a four-sided polygon, which is a traditional polygon. From this point, all I would need to do is just select the polygons like so. And again, it's not showing it highlighted because I got the F2. And again, I don't want to push that F2 key because it'll change my scene as far as in my streaming software. So I'm just going to leave it as that. I know it's selected, so I can see the yellow bounding box. And I'm going to go ahead and just do quick planner. And seeing it roughly puts that texture onto the image, but I do need to make some adjustments to it on here. So here's our poly, representative of that plane. Now what I need to do is line it up exactly to what I measured, right? And you'll be able to tell. Let's see if I can keep this in on the screen here. You'll be able to tell, you can, by looking in the viewport here, you can be able to tell, line it up to where you measured it, which I measured it outside wall there, outside wall here. It's kind of hard to see. Trying to get this all on the one monitor. Okay, and then same thing on the outside walls. And you can zoom in on this. Whoops. Like so. I kind of zoomed out on this one actually. Didn't want to do that. Let's reposition that. Alright, so now what I'm doing here is just scaling this up to match what I actually measured via the linear guides. This is going to come down a little bit. So there's that. Freaking ads, gotta love them.
Rich English toffee?
Oh, come on now.
Heath, it's English toffee.
It's crazy. I did not expect that. There's really no way to do that whenever it's, you know, free music or whatever like that. You're always going to have to deal with ads. So, apologize for that. It looks like it should continue on now. Alright, so we're just lining this up here now with outside edge. So yeah, just getting it. Basically, like I said, what you're doing is you're lining up the edges of your polys for this plane with what you measured. Alright? And this is possibly how, again, as far as how it might be off just a little bit, because I'm not getting it precisely, I guess, where it was. But this is pretty much the process that you would use, I guess, to get your ground plane, I guess, as far as what you're trying to get mapped. So let's compare this. So this is our new plane, right? Let's bring in, actually those should still be in here. Nope, I did take them out. So these two here, let's bring those in, put that on top down. These are the ones I already have laid out. To include, I guess, the plane. Okay, so this is what we got. This is the plane, the new plane that I made. Okay. And see what it did to this. Yeah, this is wrong. For some reason it applied this texture, which should be second. That should still be the magenta. How did that change? I'm gonna go ahead and apply this to it. Yeah, just to give some contrast. So basically what it had applied to that was the ground plane texture as far as the SAT image, and I didn't want that to that part of it. Okay, so this is what we brought in of our 3D mesh, the DAE import. Now what you can see here, where'd my plane 3 go? Yeah, these are overlaid pretty darn good, actually. It's kind of ghosting into that because it's got so many pieces that are close together, and that happens with 3ds Max. So the plane 3 that the new one that I made, there's underneath this. So they line up pretty good, actually. Almost identical. Okay, let me check my materials here. Is this material in here? This should be... yeah, TSD pit stall. Yes. That's what I want. Okay, just making sure. So the texture that I have in here is actually the painted line as far as the PSD pit stall, and that's in the track and sandbox too. So that's what I got, the painted lines there. That, like I said, that's already done. This is our ground plane texture. So if I bring that up, that's what that is. Okay. Thinking out loud here at this point. So these are the lines that I already put down there. Now the plane 3 that I just did fresh, just to kind of show this process. So what I'm going to have to do, yeah, you can kind of see it ghosted in there. You see the blue, so you can see how much it is off. All right, so I need, not selecting the right thing here. So I'm going to go into here, and I think it's 2. Yeah, let me hide that. Those are already done. Now, where's my plane 3? Where are you? Yeah, so you can see it right there. There we go. It tends to keep wanting to ghost in there, and it's probably, possibly because the ground plane is at the same level as that. So, that could be why. So, in any case, just to kind of not drag this out here, you kind of get the idea how you make your ground plane, right? Now I'm just trying to line these lines up here. The only thing that seemed to be off on this new line that I put here was the rotation. So if I render this at this point, see, I can't necessarily see, yeah, we're definitely off. See, this line doesn't line up. So our ground plane is still off there for some strange reason. And again, I'm not going to bore everyone to death, I guess, as far as that process. You kind of get the idea, though, as far as like what you'd have to do. So you might have to take another measurement, whatever. I already done all that process there, so I'm not going to, again, like I said, I'm not going to bore everyone to death with that. It's going to take you a little bit to get that to line up. And keeping in mind that because you've already got the background image, you know, as far as your geometry of your track, what you can basically do, because you've got that that line that I isolated. Again, this here. So this line that I have isolated here, this is your geometry of your track. So if you get that lined up with your ground plane, you can necessarily fudge that in if you want. It's not really fudging it in because this line right here is directly representative of what you have in the geometry of your track, which is in direct representation of your background image. So that's already, you've already gotten that measured out there. So as far as to get your ground plane tweaked in 3ds Max properly, you can be, and let me check this over here. You can basically just adjust this. It's not that far off, as you can see. So what I would have to adjust in this case would be, like for example, you can see here's where this line needs to line up with. And again, this is the geometry of the track. That's already based on the background image that's in Sandbox itself. So you don't need to fudge with this, you need to fudge with your ground plane. As far as to get that to line up with that, that's what you're using as a reference. Just to make that abundantly clear. So let's go ahead, since we still got this open, little polygon, we're going to open up the editor here. And it's looking like we should be able to see this move in here. Alright, so let's go here. See if we can see that move. And you can zoom in on this too, as far as in the... Yeah, so I'll go ahead and zoom in on this. So it's just a matter of tweaking out that measurement is all. And let's see where we're at. Yeah, we're still a little bit off. Okay. Alright, so let's go in here. So you want to use pretty subtle. The more you zoom in on it, you can get a little bit more precise on your movements. That's probably a fair mention. And this doesn't take very long to render because there's not that much to it. Still a little bit off. Alright, so let's go back into here. I think I'm going the wrong way, but I got to go this way. So you can see that subtly moving there. So we need to get the background image, I guess, to line up with this line. With this line right here, I'm sorry. Pointing at the monitor, yeah, it's not going to help. If I had a camera, I guess that would be possible, but it may necessarily be something I'll look into in the future. Alright, so let's go ahead and render this.
Is shopping for a car starting to feel like a full-time job?
See where we're at.
Try Car Gurus, the fast, easy way to find great deals. Car Gurus has all makes and
yeah,
models.
come on,
Every
ads.
car has a deal rating from great to overpriced, unlike other sites.
Darn ads, okay. Yeah, that's a little bit closer. So we're going in the right direction. Cool. Let's go back into edit. Okay, this way. Okay, render that again. And this is the tedious part. Another tedious part about this. I got that lined up. See, it's going in the right direction. See, we're lined up here. Good. Alright. Oops. Now go back into the edit here. Oops, I'm moving it that way. Okay. Render it again. Oh, it's definitely getting there. That's pretty doggone close, I'm telling you. Maybe a little bit more. You can see how much that's moving now. Just like I said, we're trying to line this white or gray line up with our sat image and our ground plane. Okay, so we'll just do. Oops, we gotta go into here. Not that far off. Now what I'm doing is I am actually moving that on the two axes as opposed to doing like a shift, either up or down or left. That's pretty freaking good right there. I'm liking that so far. All right, so what I can do at this point, and I got the little telltales, I guess, down in the bottom, as I failed to mention, if you haven't noticed, down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I'm trying to show, I guess, the keystrokes that I am using as much as possible. So in this case, I'm going to do left shift and drag this way, just on the one direction, so it's not pulling, I guess, from this way that I don't want to move. And oh my goodness, Almost dead on balls right there. Let's line up nicely. Okay, so let's check around the rest of the track here. Shall we? Let's minimize this for a second. I might just end up using this one here. So let's check over on this end. See where we're at. Let's render this part. You know, and like I said, if it wasn't for the fact that the image is not as clear looking at it just through the viewport and I have to render it, I guess that's pretty doggone good too. Very nice. So yeah, this is our white line. So I'm just zoom in here a little more and render that. So the fact I got to render it to actually show stat image as far as where we're at. Oh yeah, I'm liking that a lot. Let's see, this is, I can 100% tell. Oh, wait a minute. Is that right? Hold on. I'm looking at that wrong. Oh my goodness. So... no, that ain't right. Hold on. Zoom this out. I think, yeah, I might have a bit of an issue here. Let me check this. So let's go here. So it lines up there, but it's... oh, I see what's going on. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so this is way far away. Oh. Okay. Alright, let's rethink this then. Hold on. Yeah, so it is pulled away from here. So here's our white geometric line. And here's the line that we need to actually line up with, so you can see that difference right there. So it lines up here, but it's way off coming up into here. So, alright. No problem. Let's try this. So what we need to do is left shift this, drag this back down. See, I can see that moving here. There we go. Get it close. Don't know why it's moving on both axes. It should be left shift. Alright, let's check that. Looks good from that view, but let's check the render. We'll get this right. Pretty close. Too far over. Okay, so we probably got to come this way. We got to bring it inwards and the mapping. And by inwards, I mean we got to go this way. Okay. So render that. Oh my goodness, that's so close. Yep. So you can see that. So I might go a little bit further outwards. So I gotta bring it in on this direction. Okay. So it's usually, that's probably a fair point too. So depending on which direction, oops. Why is it moving that one? I don't know why it's moving that axis. I'm holding down the left shift. It's not supposed to. Let me render this again. I might have really jacked it up now. Yeah, I sure did. Dadgummit. I don't know why it's moving it on the one axis. It shouldn't be. Usually by depress of the left shift, it only moves it on one axis. So in other words, if you want it to move this way and or this way. So I'm not sure why it's moving it. Move this back out. Okay, and we'll check the render. Holy smokes, yeah. So now we're right there. See, there's our, it's right over top of that. Perfect. That was probably for the better, actually. Alright, let me check the other end. Over here. So we're right here. Who's mooing me? I heard the moo. Someone's mooing me. Who's mooing me? Taylor Farms coming in with the moo. Welcome to stream. Racer can't. I guess I gotta catch up on chat here. Sorry about that if I miss everybody's chats here. Racer James chiming in. Taylor Farms coming in with the moo. Testing out that audio sound bit. Nice. Thank you for joining here. Yeah, sorry to miss you, James. There, wasn't paying attention to the chat there. I had the bot open. It's just like I was so focused, I guess, on getting this lined up. There's a way to make the viewport clear at the cost of system memory. Yeah, that's what I was going over there too, James. As far as I know, there's a way to do that, and I know it does use. That's a very good point. I kind of hit it on that earlier. As far as like, that's part of the reason why I don't do that, is because you do need a lot of system resources. It uses a lot as it is, so yeah, we can deal with that later on, and it might have gotten reset, I guess, with the new card. In fact, I know when I did this before, even the new card, it's still fuzzy. It was fuzzy in the viewport, at least anyway. That's why I have to go back and forth and render it. Yes. Speaking of the render, so you can see how much this is off still yet. So what we need to get at this point is this white line needs to line up with our, and again, I want to reiterate as far as, not sure how much I missed as far as when you chimed in there at first there, James, but because this is our geometry line that's in Sandbox, this is where we want to line our ground plane up with. We've already done our rough measurement as far as to get the ground plane roughly mapped to our ground plane properly. Then it's just basically fine-tuning it to this geometric line that we have here that we exported via DAE of the track mesh that I did earlier. So this is a true line. This is what we want to go by as far as like what's 100% representative of our track in the Sandbox utility. So that line that I'm trying to line the ground plane up to is representative of this line in this case here. So this is the same area roughly in representation of this right here. So we're trying to line this up, which is our geometric line. Again, that's in Sandbox, to this SAT image that's in the ground plane. Okay, so just to kind of clarify a little bit, in case anybody has had any questions about that, as far as what I'm trying to do here. And I invite anybody, if you have any questions as far as what I'm doing, if there's something I didn't hit on, I try to talk through it, I guess, as I'm doing it as much as possible, just to kind of remove any doubt as far as like what's happening. But if you do have a question, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer it as best I can. Yeah, and no, I don't consider any question to be a dumb question. Possibly the only dumb question is the ones that are not asked. You know, so if you got something on your mind that's kind of troubling you, whatever like that, feel free to ask. Alright, so as I said, I got to bring the background image. Work has been crazy this week. I'm going to start the objects this week. I think finalize the infield object. Yeah, and I kind of went over some of the geometry there. I'm sure you were probably aware of it, James. I kind of touched on as far as it being a loose representation, I guess, of the track as it is. There are some areas that do need to be fixed in the infield. Like I said, I'm sure you were probably aware of it. As far as these separations that exist, like right in here. It does need an infield object, more than likely, but I don't know if you had intended to fix some of this geometry that's in the infield. I think the primary focus, as I mentioned earlier at the start of the stream, was just to get the racing surface set correctly. You know, get that tuned in, which I think is great. I don't think there's really any problems with the racing surface itself. I've done a lot of racing on it offline. I've had to make some adjustments to the setup. As far as the braking, I think it was a little extreme. So just little minor tweaks, I guess, to the setup. But as far as the surface itself, based on whatever setup you want to throw on it, on the car, it's very nice to drive. It's fun to drive. And it didn't bother until it was happy. Yes, yeah, and that's what I figured. But I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure you were probably aware of it. But you can see this is a huge depression right here, and it's got some gaps in between the interior retaining wall and the the geometry there. So I think if, however you do that, as far as the to put the infield ground plane or whatever, I think that would be great. I don't think anything needs to be done with geometry, to be honest. It's smooth transition going into the pits. As far as coming off the track, in and off the track. This is the entrance to the pits right here. And then this goes around. It's a curved pit. This goes through 3 and 4. This goes down the front straight. There's the start finish line, loosely placed. And then this goes out to turn 1. So just to kind of give everybody a loose representation of the track as far as the orientation. It is a counterclockwise track, just like most NASCAR tracks are, oval tracks. So that's kind of a overview of that track. But yeah, so I figured that, like I said, James, that you had some work to do on it. As far as any major adjustments to the geometry, I don't think so, other than just cleaning up that infield like that. So Taylor, if you're still in the I don't know if you're checking out all the audio stuff like that. I know most of those are on a cooldown, so that you can't spam the audios, but there's several other ones there too, if you care to want to get my attention. That's what they're there for. Sometimes I tend to lose sight of looking at the chat sometimes because I get so involved, I guess, with what I'm doing. So that's why I have those in there. But they are on. Thank you for testing that out for me, Taylor. Appreciate it. Keeping me awake, keeping me honest. Okay, so, and for those that are new to the chat too, there are, if you are here and even just lurking in the stream, you are necessarily earning yourself fluids. I like to donate fluids, I guess, to people, because who doesn't need fluids, I guess, to keep their energy up. Be it your favorite fluids as far as Rockstar, Monster Energy, whatever you like. You get those are what they're representative. But if you are just lurking in the stream and not necessarily engaging in the chat, that's fine. You're still earning yourself fluids, but you can necessarily give yourself shots of fluid if you like by ! shot, and even gamble your fluids away if you so choose by using ! risk, and you can either gain or lose in that fashion. Shots are basically the same way. You don't lose any necessarily with a shot. It's either you get more fluids or you don't. All those particular commands are on a cooldown, so be very aware of that. So as you risk fluids or give yourself a shot, you will have to wait a little bit for the next one, next time you can use it. So that's kind of a global setting on that, and that's just to make it so that everybody has a chance, I guess, to use that if they so choose. So that's, can't necessarily spam that as well, but they are available, just to let everybody know. Them are awesome. I appreciate that. I try to a lot of those particular sounds, like the rooster and the cow, the moo cow, was to play homage, I guess, to the farm simming stuff. As far as when I do that on Fridays, but I figure, they kind of fit whatever type of streaming I'm doing anyway. So I'm kind of a farming geek, as far as, for the lack of a better way to put it, because I do like to do a lot of farming stuff. This is a little bit different, but it is along the same lines as doing some 3D modeling. That's what my primary focus is as far as being a modder, is doing a lot of 3D modeling, and this is just another aspect that I necessarily do. So I appreciate you, all those that are out there lurking and engaging in the chat and checking out what I got going on here. Very, very kind. I appreciate it. So, I kind of lost my train of thought here as I was giving my spiel there. Oh yeah, we were lining up our ground plane. This is in Sandbox, actually. I gotta go back to 3ds Max. So we need to. Whoops, I don't want that. What's really, it gets really frustrating sometimes. The controls that are in the Sandbox that it just came out of here. So in a Sandbox utility for laying down spline geometry for the track is much different as far as the functions. You know, the keys that you push to navigate around and that are much different than in. So a lot of times I tend to step on using the same keys in either program. So you might necessarily see me fumble quite a bit as far as like, oh crap, I forgot I was in Sandbox or I'm in 3ds Max. So yeah, I'm glad to be back on, James. It was, you know, I did necessarily take a you know, kind of a refresher course, you know, shake the rust off to kind of get back into it, because it's been like over 5 months. It's been since last April. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like, you know, it was such a huge pain in the butt not having a decent enough video card, I guess, to be able to work with. That's the thing. And having to borrow computers, you know, like going to the library and all that stuff, going to the computer lab over at the university, blah blah blah. It was just a pain in the butt. I just couldn't do as much as I wanted to or needed to. So the fact that I'm able to do this again, it kind of feels much more comfortable. Let's just put it that way. And the fact that I can show off, I guess, you know, carry on with what I was normally doing on Saturdays, which is show 3D modeling based on track building as far as for NASCAR Racing 2003 season. That's, again, just keeping with my roots, if you will. Alright, I think I'm caught up here, so I just want to... Yeah, so what I'm in the process of doing now, this is Sandbox, and the fact that, yeah, it has different key functions and whatever to navigate around into it as far as zooming and all that stuff. See, like, for example, like Sandbox, which is an old 32-bit program, it doesn't have the mouse wheel where you can zoom in and out like you can in some of your other like Giants editors, things like that. You have to use the Z key to zoom in and the X key to zoom out. I'm just refreshing everybody, and use the C key, whatever, to repoint, you know, it based on the mouse pointer to get it, you know, into that. So that kind of gives you an idea of just the basic workings, I guess, of the Sandbox utility for track building, spline geometry, and the Sandbox utility. But as far as like with 3ds Max, as this is, you can use the mouse wheel, as I'm doing there, and you don't need to use those same keys as you do in Sandbox. So it's, yeah, that's always fun, I guess, as far as when it comes to that. So okay, where were we? I get sidetracked in here, and I have to sometimes refocus, I guess, as far as what I'm doing. But again, that's why all that stuff is available in there. It's for you guys to keep me honest, to be like, hey, I'm still here. Appreciate you being here. Again, invite anybody to ask any questions. If you have any questions, I guess, as far as what's going on, what I'm doing, whatever, I try to answer those questions. Seems like there would be some sort of app to allow mouse wheel to simulate keystrokes. You know, yeah, I don't know if that would be if you'd be capable of doing that like in Sandbox. Is that what you mean, as far as to emulate, I guess, the same movements, I guess, in Sandbox? I don't know. That I'm not 100% aware of. It does necessarily remind me, is, you know, it's pretty easy, I guess, to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, I'm using the wrong, like, when I try to use the mouse wheel in Sandbox, it doesn't work. It'd be like, oh, crap, I forgot I was in Sandbox. But, like, when I try to do the Z and X or whatever in Max, for example, yeah, see, it'll do this. So that's the zoom, that's the Z key, that's your zoom. So it's zooming in on what I have selected. So then I can just use the mouse to zoom back in. So that's the zoom extents when you push the Z key in Max. And that's how I know. It's like, oh, okay, I'm in Max. So that's my reminder. So it doesn't usually hurt anything, I guess, as far as when I do those keys. But like if I do X key, it brings up a command prompt, you know, as far as a search for actions, which is not a big deal because I can just click out of it. And that's just another indicator for me to know it's like, hey, you're in the wrong program. So, anywho, so what we're trying to do, once again, is trying to get this white or gray line, which is our geometry line that we exported out from our track geometry earlier, to line up with our ground plane, our sat image here. Right? So we're trying to adjust the mapping of our ground plane to line up with that outside edge of the pit stalls, right? So let's go ahead and render this again. Just gotta refresh my memory. I forgot where we left off. So we're not too far off. We are off just a tad. So you can see this white line right here I'm pointing on, that's our geometry. That's our geometric line. This line right here is our ground plane SAT image. So that's what we need to get this white line to line up with. It's not that far off. We're pretty darn close. And this is on the opposite end of the track that we lined up over here currently, or previously. So this one here lines up pretty good. So we'll render this again just to kind of show. Just refreshing everybody to let them know where we're at. So yeah, this one lines up perfectly. So that geometric line is right over top of where we want it. And this line is what I laid down as a plane, and this is what we're trying to build. Which I already did that. I'm just going through the process of what I did to get to that point. So again, if there's any questions about that, just feel free. So this end here, we need to move. Now, for the fear of adjusting this one that was already lines up right, we don't need to move this that much. So I'm going to go into our edit UVW. So what this is again, once again, is the actual polygon. It's one polygon selected. That's our ground plane, right? So you can see this bounding box here. That means that's selected. And as I said earlier, it's like the only reason why it's not 100% highlighted like the red that it usually is, it's because of the F2. You can toggle the F2. I'm not going to push it because it'll change my scene. So just in case anybody was wondering, if I push the F2, it's going to change my scene. I don't want to do that. So I probably need to come up with a new hotkey, I guess, for that that scene. But that the F2 is primarily what you'd use to toggle on or off as far as if you got highlighted polys within the program. And the only other way I know that the poly is selected is because of this yellow bounding box. So I don't necessarily need to see that. Okay? But I can see it in here. I can do the same thing in here. Again, I'm not going to push that because that's on that F2 key, but you can do roughly the same thing in the edit UVW screen as well. Those work independently, so you can do the F2 and it'll deselect that. It'll still have the bounding box here, but you won't have that grid for the poly in there. So just to kind of put it FYI out there. So what we're trying to do is adjust this corner. So I'm going to try this ever so gingerly. I'm going to zoom in on this. And I'm going to see if I can, let's do this. I'm going to try and get this all on one monitor, so bear with me. So I can show this. So what I'm trying to adjust, and you'll be able to see this. If I zoom in on this, you'll be able to see this image on this ground plane shift. Alright, okay, so we'll go into here. And I don't need to move it that much. So I just want to go this way. That's probably pretty freaking good there. Let's try it. Render it. Oh my goodness, that's so close. Yeah, I think I might have went the wrong way with it actually. I think I did. Okay, hold on. Oh, back in there. Now, another thing you can do is, like, if you didn't like that adjustment that you just made, I can do Control Z, and it'll put it back. That's probably something else I failed to mention. So I might have done it a couple times already and just failed to mention it. So Control Z, when you're in that window, it'll necessarily go back a step. So that'll put it back, basically back where it went. So I think I did necessarily go the wrong way with that on that move. So I need to go inwards, I think. Yeah, you can see that shifting. Okay, let's render that again, see what we did. And again, if it's fooked up or whatever, I can always do the Control Z. Oh my goodness, that's looking good. I like it. Okay, now let's check the other corner though. See if we goof that up. Might have. Actually, no. Pretty good. I'm gonna call that good. Yeah, so that lines up pretty good. So that geometric line lines right up with the painted line that's on the SAT image. And once again, I'll show this. Let's go in this corner here again. I'll zoom in on that. Closer, and we'll render it. And it should be, oh my god, it's so close. It's maybe just a smidge more, but I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna call that good. I could necessarily go ahead and try to mudge it just a tad more, but that's so freaking close, it's not even funny. Okay? So I'm gonna leave that right where it's at. So that's our ground plane. Okay? Lined up with that geometric that we've already gotten lined up. We've already sized it. At least I'm trusting your judgment there, James. I'm assuming you did all that work as far as to get the ground, the background image into the sandbox. So I'm assuming that's correct. I didn't have anything to do with that, so I'm going by that. I'm going by what you had in there. So I hope that's fair enough. So yeah, basically what I did, I went through all that as far as like how to size that. What you necessarily want to keep in mind is whatever you're measuring for your image, you want to have that, whatever you're measuring. So even if I went a little bit further, you want to make sure you're lining the same that you're measuring on your image onto your ground plane, right? So within a meter or two, at least in this case, so that you can get it close, and then just kind of tweak it like I was, just kind of massage it into place based on something that's already in place. Right? So we're all past that now. So I'm going to call this good. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this mapping for the ground plane. Now we have two ground planes. So I'm probably going to use this one because as you can recall, we had a little bit of an issue with the ground plane that I had initially. It was a little bit off. So I may just go ahead and use this one. I'm going to bring back, let's hide this one that we just did, okay, and we're going to unhide this original plane, which was plane 1 here. This was the original plane I did with the mapping, and we did come to find that it was a little bit off. So if I render this, you can see how much that's off. So this is why we made a new plane. I went through that whole process as far as how to do that. So look at this one. If you see this white line, this is our geometric line. And then it was off just a smidget. As you can see, this is the painted line that's on the SAT image. So it is just a tad bit off. So if I even go so far as, let's go over here and render this, you can see how much it's off here. Cool. So yeah, you can see how much that's off here. Here's our SAT image. Here's our geometric line. So we were off there just a tad. Go on the SAT image? What is what do you mean by that, James? Elaborate, please. So yeah, you can see this is the original plane that I did. Like I said earlier part of the stream, start of the stream, I did that very quickly. Notice to kind of get the image onto the ground plane and just kind of get that thing going. So it was probably a little bit off, so, but no problem. I was able to go through that whole process as far as what I did, I guess, to do that. So I came to that conclusion. Now, let me go ahead, this is the original ground plane, right? The original one I did. And I'm going to bring back pit stall 2, which is our vertical lines. And we're going to check these in comparison with the original one and the new one I just did. So let's render this. And I still got that blue that's in there. That's the plane that I made. Let me get that out of there, actually. That's plane 3. Wait a minute. Did that wrong. Where's that plane 2? Maybe that's plane 2. Yep, that's plane 2. So let's hide that one. Gotcha. Alright, so yeah, that plane was the one I tried to, I made that, that's how and I'm going to show that still as far as how that process that I went through to get these lines into position. So let me go ahead and render this again. Okay. And sandbox on the right? What do you mean? I guess I lost you. You lost me there, James, a little bit. So yeah, you can see those lines actually look pretty good, but what is off is this outside line. So you can kind of see how these lines that I got in here, those line up pretty good. But this line is off. You can see that. Okay, let me go to the other end of the track. Alright, render this. Check this out. Yeah, this is way off. Holy crap. See how much that's off? So this is the original ground plane. Right? Now, these lines are even off here a little bit too, so you can see. So yeah, this is the original ground plane, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our new ground plane. Hide this one. Alright, and then we're going to unhide. That should be plane 3. This is our new ground plane. Let's check this one out. Let's render this one. See where we're at. Yeah, this one's much better. Yep, much better. It's a tad bit off, you know, as far as you can see that. Just let me zoom in a little bit more. That'll help. I mean, we're freaking so close, it's not even funny. But yeah, you can see just barely. Here's the silhouette. Here's the line right there, right next to it. So you can see how these line up much better. Yep, that's what we want. Oh, go, 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 go. Yeah, yeah, on the right side. Yeah. Yeah, the Google image. Yeah, all these right here. I got you now. So on the right side it says go, 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 go. And, you know, there's a process with that too, I guess, just to kind of elaborate, I guess, as far as to get this background image. It's a stitched image. So like you're going into Google Earth in this case, and you're stitching it. And I'm assuming based on how many Googles you got here, you got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images, if I'm right. Is that a fair assessment there, James? So he's got at least 5 images, Google Earth images, stitched together to make a high-res image, which is a 4K. It's a 4K image, background image. So yeah, but that was kind of funny when you were saying, it's like, what the heck is he talking about? Yeah, so they go, 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 all the way to the right side edge there. It's kind of funny. That's all a part of the stitching, though. So anyway, the second go ahead, I guess, is that going through this process during the live stream here. This lines up much better with what we have. It's a one-to-one representation of what we have, the geometry of the track, and what we're trying to accomplish here. So we got everything lines up the way we need to. Let's just check another area here while I'm saying that. So let's check right over here. This is turn 4, right over here, start finish line. Let's zoom in on this part. This has got an opening right here. That's why you got this smaller section here. This is an opening right here in the wall. Let's check this out. Oh man, that's like dead on balls, man. It's like perfect. Yeah, you can see it's just a little bit off right here. Not too bad. Not too jabby. I can deal with it. Very, very nice. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna go with this one. That's good. We're gonna go by that one. That was much direct relationship, direct orientation, I guess, as far as geometry of our track, which is that outside painted edge of the pit stalls, and yeah. And again, like I was showing earlier, I know James and Taylor, you came in a little bit late to the stream, but other thing that's really cool, I guess, that you really get a sense of how much elevation is in this track from one end to the other. Because the ground plane, as you can kind of tell, those lines that are out here, that geometry is floating out here on this end. Keeping in mind that the ground plane here is at, it's completely flat. It's at 0, 0, 0. And you can see that elevation that's in the geometry of the track based on all that LiDAR information. That really gives you a sense of how you know, accurate, for lack of a better way to put it. The track actually is, you know, from ground zero as far as how much elevation is actually in there. So you have, this is the turn 3-4 end that's elevated, and it's relatively zero on this end. So you go from basically low here, you go up the hill, down the back stretch, through turns 3 and 4, and back down again, coming through this front straightaway, back to turn 1. Really cool. Pretty awesome, actually. And that's kind of the historical, you know, let's say, you know, the, for lack of a better way to put it, it's the iconic knowledge, or the iconic history of the track. Because if you ever watched, you know, past races on this track, that's what all the drivers basically struggle with, is that uphill battle going down the backstretch, as they call it, down the backstretch, because you're going uphill, you know, going to turns 3 and 4. Pretty cool. But yeah, you can see that, you know, somewhat pretty clearly if I put it on this angle, just how high that is up there. All these, that's the natural geometry right there based on the LiDAR. Pretty cool. Anyway, I thought it was kind of neat to kind of show that off, as far as just to give some realism, I guess, to what we're trying to accomplish here. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unhide my original plane and make sure I've got that selected. So plane 1, and I'm going to delete that bad boy because that one's off. We're going to go by our new plane that we just remapped. I'll apply it to, I think that was probably a better way to do it, to just kind of go slowly through the process, just to kind of show everything that's involved to get that lined up properly. And keeping in mind, now this is barring the fact that this, what you have in here, what we exported earlier, as far as the track geometry, that's all, you know, that's all true to itself, as far as like, so when I say that, it's just like the image that's in your track before you start laying down all your geometric splines. That's all your ground, your starting image is proper. That's properly. And again, I'm putting 100% faith, I guess, in what you have done previously, James. I guess as far as that was correct. I didn't measure that myself to actually justify it, you know, to confirm, I guess, that what it was. So I was putting 100% faith in the fact that you already done that work. I didn't want to do secondary work, I guess, at that point. Okay. It's been almost a, wow, time flies when you're having fun. I need to take a little bio break, you know, just for a minute. Don't go nowhere. I'm going to be right back. Alrighty, folks, we were back there. Apologies for that little short delay there. Okay. James, what is with those emotes? Oh, God. Oh, man. Oh, hilarious. Okay, let's see if we can put our playlist back on here. There we go. Okay, where were we? James having some fun with the emotes there. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I was just going over as far as like getting that all into place. And now what I want to do, now that I have this proper plane here, I want to save this scene. Right? So I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Save right over this one. That's fine. That'll work. So now I know that's good. So that's my starting point again as far as like if I find any problems with moving forward. So basically all we're trying to do now at this point, I already did, I went through the process of, I guess I can show that still a little bit. I know I said I was going to do that, so I'll do that. I've already got all these pit stall lines already in place, but I was showing the process of how I did that as far as like to do each one individually. So I'm going to go unhide plane 2. So this is that plane. Okay, and I'm going to go top down, like so. And that is going to be underneath the ground plane, I believe. So let's see here. I'm going to turn off the ones that are already done, which is pit stalls 2. Cool. We're going to hide those, and then highlight plane 2. There it is. So now what I basically do is, this is what I was showing before, I had to remap the ground plane, create a new ground plane and remap it and so on. To put these into position, why does I keep deselecting? I think it's below the ground plane. I think that's why it's just ghosting. I think, anyway. Let me see here. Let me rotate this here for a second. Yeah, it is. It's clipping with the ground plane. That's what it's doing. So when I laid this down, if you remember, when I did this, it was top down. And when I did it, so basically what it's doing is clipping with the ground plane. So what I will have to do, once I get this roughly into position, I'll have to raise that up so I can snap it to where it needs to go. So that's part of the process here. So right now, as you can see, it's clipping with the ground plane. That's at 0. And you got that elevation that's in the, that's based on the geometry of the track. It's kind of above that ground plane. We don't want to change that, right? We want to snap these lines that we're trying to create onto the actual geometric line. Okay? Make that abundantly clear. Alright, so, whoops. Zoom back in on that. Okay, so we're going to render this. Oh my goodness, we're so close. Look at that. So we need to rotate that there this way a little bit. Let's do that. And I can use, if it was a truer angle, like if it was a true 90 or whatever like that, I can do a snap toggle as far as a rotate toggle. But in this case, because it's so minuscule, you know, so small, I don't want to do that. Okay, so that's why I'm kind of doing this way. Just really fine-tuning, I guess, that rotation. Alright, we're going to render that again. That's pretty doggone good. I just got to slide it this way now. And this is what you'd have to do for each line, right? As far as, you know, in other words, you can do it one of two ways. Like if you clear up the image, as far as to use up some of your resources to make the image more clear in the viewport, you wouldn't have to render it. But the fact that I have this and just trying to minimize the use of memory and resources, I keep it otherwise in this orientation, you know, this way, and then I just keep rendering it. It would save me a step if I did necessarily clear it up there. James coming in with the Twitch Prime subscriber. How long are you waiting to do that? I can just imagine. Did you get your 1 year yet? I know that's been killing you for a while. I appreciate that, James. There it is. There's that 1 year badge. Wonder if it updated on the... I know the Streamlabs has been a little bit slacking behind too, so if the informations don't necessarily update, I guess in the bottom of the screen there as far as the latest VIPs, I'm not really sure what's going on with it. I know it says 5 months, but I know that's not true. You and I both know that's not true. I think it just only wants to recognize 5 for some reason. I'll give it a minute or two. It might update, but I know you've been probably just dying, I guess, to try to get that one done, haven't you? But again, I appreciate it. Spam them emotes. Name looks good with that 1 year badge too. That's cool. Okay. And you too, for all those that are lurking out there still watching the stream there, if you could, you too could have your very own channel emotes. I believe the September stuff is over now that TwitchCon is finally underway, officially in San Diego. I believe they're on their second day at this point because it started Thursday. I have been keeping in touch, I guess, with some of the streamers I know that have attended TwitchCon. Seem to be having pretty much fun. Watching a lot of the little clips, I guess, of them selfies and stuff like that. It's kind of looks like everybody's having a good time there, and that's good. It's good to see. It's good to be able to get stay in touch, I guess, with most of your. Oh, it did update. I just happened to notice that on the bottom there, as far as the latest VIPs, it is has been refreshed. Razor James, you're officially 1 year old. 12 months. Very exciting. Appreciate all the support. I guess all that time there, James. Very much so. Yep, it did update. Sweet. Streamlabs is working. Awesome. Very nice. Alright, anyway. Trying not to lose sight, I guess, is what we're trying to accomplish here. I know there's been a lot of catching up to do. That's for sure. Because I know it's been a good 5 months. Very good 5 months, like I said, since last April that I've been able to actually do this. And it's been through the support of those like James. I appreciate you. Can't appreciate you enough, that's for sure. But I noticed Torch is another one. Torch 1, he's another one that I've been, keeping, sharp eye as far as, like, still trying to assist even in my absence, I guess, if you will. And I see he's necessarily must have subscribed off stream too. That's kind of cool. That's why he's populating, I guess, the latest VIPs there. So that's kind of cool. I like it. Appreciate the support very much so. Need to check something here really quick while I'm at it. Yep, that did work. Cool. Yes, all my bots and what have you seem to be working properly as well, so it's something I wanted to make sure. Cool. Yeah, it's hard to believe, even after being out for as long as I did, that everything was still kind of lined up properly. Everything was still hunky-dory. That was kind of cool. Nothing got thrown out of whack or anything like that, so very cool. Okay. Getting some messages, I guess, from some of the farm sim friends too, as far as like those I tend to play around with the farm sim stuff. So I have been doing a lot of that too lately. I have kind of tweeted out, or maybe not necessarily tweeted out, but I know I have put some information out there as far as some things I've been working on in farm sim. As far as map building and what have you, as far as objects and assets, I guess, for map building. So, yeah. I've got a lot of that going on, too. So, I might show a little bit of that, I guess, before the end of the stream here. We'll see. how time progresses here. I want to get these this object here for this track build in. I want to go through the process of this there. So we got this plane down here, and like I said, it's clipping in to the ground plane here, which is at 0. So this is pretty well. Gosh darn it! I'm gonna zoom in on that. All right, so let's render this again. Got lost track of it here a little bit. So we need to slide it a little bit this way. Kind of get it lined up a little better, keeping it as much perpendicular with this geometric line as possible. We're gonna snap it to that. Right? Alright, so we're going to go with this highlighted. Darn it. Nope. I'm going to go this way. Got to make sure we got it selected. And we're going to slide that bad boy this way a little bit. Like so. And then we're going to render it. Okay. It's actually not too bad. Maybe just a tad bit more. A bit more. There we go. Render it. That's actually not half bad right there. So that's pretty well lined up there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, while I'm at it, I'm going to lift this up straight up on this Z-axis. So I'm going to bring it up to the geometric line as close as possible, like so. And we'll go back to the top-down view and zoom in on that. Now it won't be clipping into the ground plane, number one. Now what I can do is I can basically snap that edge to this edge. Basically snap the edge of this new plane to that. Alright? Okay. So I'm going to turn on edge snaps. I'm going to turn the vertex ones off. And then just snap that to it. Oh, and I moved it. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to back that up. This is what's kind of... And what I could probably do, rather than snap it that way, is I could necessarily snap both of these verts, just so that it doesn't wonk out like it just did. Okay, just kind of showing all these, you know, possible ways of doing it. So, as you can tell, like when I put the edge snaps on, when I try to put that and just bring it in here, it tends to wonk out like that. I don't want that, because I want it in that position that I had it. So I'm going to bring this back. So instead, because the length of this line is not really going to matter as much, what we want it is in that position, right? So what I can do at this point is just, and I still have this modifier in here for the plane. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, now that I got this roughly into place, is I'm going to convert this to an editable poly, right? And then from here, and again, since the size of this, the length of this way doesn't matter. What does matter is the width, as you know, if anything. So what I can do is take the verts on this end, which I'm going to go into right now, and I can snap each of those verts to that edge of this geometric line, this painted line, and then I know it's in the right spot. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to put this on vert snap instead of edge snap, and just snap it this way. Oops. Come on now, don't make a liar out of me. Why is that not snapping correctly? It might not be up high enough either. Just a minute. Hold please. Yeah, so let's turn it this way. So I got it in orthographic views, which makes it nicer. Not to worry about it clipping or anything. So why are we not snapping right? That's weird. Why aren't you snapping? It could very well be because it's not. It's either too high or too low. Let's see. You goofy thing, you. Alright, I don't like any of that. That's wonking it out of shape too much. This worked for me last time. I don't know why it's not working now. What the world? Oh, I know why. Duh. So yeah, when I said I switched it over to vert snap, even though I'm selecting a vert, I'm actually trying to snap it to an edge. So it's not what you're trying to snap from, but what you're trying to snap to. So the fact that it's looking for a vert, so it's trying to, when I'm trying to snap this vert, and I've got it set to vert snap, it's trying to look for a vertex to snap to. So yeah, I do need it on edge snap. I can't necessarily leave those both on, but I only want to snap to an edge, which this is an edge, not necessarily a vert. Right? So let's go back to top down, and I'm going to zoom back in on that. Okay. So I'm selecting the vert on this, and I want to snap that to this edge. That's why I got edge snaps on, right? And there we go. And now it'll turn green, and that's how I know it's snapped. So I can select this one, snap that one. Now it did kind of wonk out a little bit, but that's not too terrible. I'm not too concerned with that because there are painted lines, and painted lines aren't 100% perfect as far as like straight. I mean, they tend to be a little bit slightly wonky, so that's kind of a natural thing. So that's not really a big concern. So we got that snapped into position, and it's in editable poly as you saw that I converted it to. And just to confirm, let's render this. And there we go. It's completely snapped into that position. So from this point, what I would do, now that that's in position, I got it the proper size, what have you, I can apply the texture to it, which I have in the material editor. I can go to this, and we're going to apply that 100%, and we're going to map it, right? So right now it's not, the mapping coordinates aren't correctly. I'm going to turn the snaps off here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is apply a unwrap UVW to it, like so. And we're going to open up that editor, and then open up the texture, like so. And then what I'm going to do is, again, because this is a rather simple geometry, you know, it's not very complex or abstract or anything like that. In most cases, what you can do is just get away with doing a quick planner. So what I'll do is just go ahead and select poly in the unwrap UVW modifier, and that'll select that. And again, it's not 100% fully highlighted because of the F2, but I do know it's selected because of this yellow bounding box. And if I did push the F2, I don't want to change my scene. I want to beat a dead horse on that, but that's why if I did the F2, this would be highlighted, red or orange or whatever color it appeared to you, but I can see that's highlighted here too. So what I'm going to do, again, because it's a simple geometry, just do a quick planner. That didn't work out very well, so I can do a Control Z to put that back. Whoops, I did the wrong one. What the heck did you just do? Alright, it took the... how did it do that? I'll be damned. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply that UVW unwrap again. I don't know why I did that, but that's cool. That's cool. Alright, so let's go like this. And again, I'm going to select polygon. And I can do this from one of two places. I can do it right in the viewport itself or right in the edit UVW screen. So I'm going to do it from here. And then I'm going to try the quick planner again. So it does it this way. That's not really the result I was looking for, so I'll do a Control Z. Yeah, I see what it did. So it just completely took it out. So what I'll probably end up doing, I see what it did now. It doesn't normally do that, but even so, I'll just go ahead and reapply that. And do this. Bring the texture up. Right, and I'm going to go ahead and select polygon. And I can do that down here too. If I know I'm grabbing it from over here, I can necessarily grab vertex edges or polygons right from here. So I can do it right from the edit UVW. But I'm just kind of showing the versatility that's in 3ds Max as far as where you can select stuff. So you can select the beamers from here over here as far as, so I can go like this, or vertexes. That's all vertexes. These are edges. So, okay. So I didn't like it as a quick planner, so probably what I'll try and do is a flatten map, see what that does. Just do okay. I don't like that either. So we'll do that and put it back. This is what I was expecting it to do when I did it last time. So yeah, it puts it right back to where we had it, and I'm going to try a normal map. Whoops. Let's do a normal map. I don't like either one of those. Okay, so no big deal. Normal map is definitely not what I want. So what you're trying to do is get the mapping, I guess, to present itself, I guess, in such a fashion that makes sense as far as based on the geometry. Normally, your quick planar is your best approach, is the best option. But I think what it looks like it might be trying to do is, because of the bounding box, I guess, for this texture, because it's so skinny, it's trying to stretch or do the planar map, I guess, in this direction as far as horizontal, and that's the best solution that you can come up with. So I may just go ahead and still do that. What I'll end up doing from this point is just go ahead and scale it, and we can check its orientation based on the actual object itself, right? So let's do this. Let me see if I can get these both into view here. See if we can get this to make sense. So now what I can do is just grab this freeform, go like this. See, and it's got some angularity on the ends here too. We can fix that pretty quickly and swiftly. Let's see. I want to see if I can tell the orientation of this. So we got a dark line, kind of a dark splotch here that should be, we'll see which end that's on. And it'll give us an idea of what orientation it is. If this line, as far as it at UVW, is in this position, if it's up here, then we know we'll just leave it like that. Because that means this edge is against our geometric line, and that's kind of what we want. All right, so yeah, it looks like it's right here. If I render this, let's see what we got here. That's actually kind of hard to tell. Seems like it's right there, but let me check it down here. Looks like it's stretching that pretty bad too. I don't know if I like that. Let's render that. Not sure I'm gonna like this. Wow, that doesn't look good at all. Okay, hold on. See, this is using the quick planar, mind you, so. Okay, I don't know if I like that. It's stretching it, I don't like that. Let me try something here. I'm gonna go back. This is where we started. That's as far back as it can go. Okay. Let's try. I gotta try this again. Let's do a flat map. Alright, let's go from here. Let's stretch this way. Let's see if this gives us a better result. Sometimes you gotta play around with these, the different types of mapping, you know, just to see if you get the result that you're looking for. I almost don't like this one either. This second here. Let's render it. Wow, that seems to be stretching it. I don't know why though. I mean, basically, by stretching, what I mean is like when I go to rescale it, you know, as far as to fill this entire texture, to make it a one-to-one representation of this actual shape. That's not what I want though. Huh. I'm at a loss here, because that didn't do that for me when I originally mapped. I'm trying to figure out why it's doing that. Yeah, because when I initially mapped the ones that I already have done, it didn't do that. I did a quick planar because it was simple geometry, and it was one-to-one. It basically filled that. So I'm not 100% sure why it's doing it this way. So let me try something here. Let me go. We're going to figure this out. I'm not 100% sure why it's doing this. Let's rotate this way. Okay, this one's got straighter ends. Let me see. try to scale this out. Oh my God, that's might have something here. Oh, the phone might have something here. So the other thing I can do is put the grid snaps on, and what that'll do is it basically snaps, especially if I go to verts. It'll snap to the bounding box, I guess, of that texture itself. So let me just kind of roughly put this into position here. This might be our better option here. Let's see. Let's render that. I think so. Let me zoom in on this a little better. Just kind of get a better idea. It looks pretty darn good this way. Let's render that. Yep, that does look better. Now, let's see if we can get the orientation. See where we're at here. So we got that dark line that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, so it was a matter of I had to rotate it is what it came down to. So here's that line. That's on the bottom here. So let's render that. So if anything, I just have to flip it in for in. Yeah. That looks a lot better. So yeah, you can see this line and all this detail, whatever, much more clearly this way. So I ended up having to rotate it is what I did before I stretched it, elongated it, right? Okay, no problem. All right, so what I'll do from this point is I want to put this on that end. I want to get it up here so that when you're looking at the texture, that's a 1-to-1. So this part of the texture will be up here. So what I need to do from here is just flip it this way, right? No, that side to side. Let's put that back. We need it this way. There we go. So now it's up here. So now we got a 1-to-1 representation. We got that mark on this end. So that's more of a 1-to-1 representation of the texture as far as its orientation and the orientation of the texture itself onto the plane. Right, so we got, let's render this really quick. Oh yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so now that that's mapped, right? So now from this point, that's all good to go. We're gonna go ahead and collapse that. Don't need that anymore. And that's still an editable poly, cool. Now from this point, I can take this because it's already the right size, what have you. I can clone this, right? Once that's mapped, it's the right size, all that stuff in order to make them fairly consistent all the way through the consecutive ones that we lay down, we can clone this. And making sure that when you clone this, don't do it as an instance, because any changes that you make as an instance, any changes that you make to one is going to affect the original, right? So we don't want to do that. So when we do a copy, it'll only affect the copy and not the original. Okay, so we're gonna clone this like so. Now I'm not gonna do all of these. I'm just kind of showing the process of what I did to get to the point that I, came to that finalization there. So that's cloned. So now all I can do is just slide this down. And even though that's snapped, that's probably another fair mention. I didn't weld it. It snapped to that edge. Just as long as I don't touch that original one that I put down here, that'll still stay there, right? Until I go ahead and weld it. So I just moved this one that I cloned, which is a copy. So now what I'll do is render this to put that into position. Get that over where we need it. It's probably pretty close already. Look at that. So there's the line. So we went a little too far, actually. So you can see here's our original one right here. This is the one we just cloned. And we need to come back this way a little bit. So we'll move it this way. I'm trying to keep it as close to that as possible. Okay, so we'll go ahead and render that. And that's looking pretty good. Pretty cool. Alright, so we'll keep that there. Now we'll go ahead and snap this. do this in the same process. So we're going to go vertex, select this one, and we're going to go edge snaps, and just snap that to it. Just like that. So that's snapped to that geometric edge. Right? Now, what may necessarily still present itself is this end here might be too low. What I do have at my disposal here too, I think it's still in here. I think I still have the track geometry in here. Yep. So we have this to go by. Don't worry about the mapping on it. That's not a big deal. So what I can do also is adjust the opposite end to the geometry on this end. So we did have to move this up, if you remember. So I can adjust the opposite end as well to the actual geometry of the track. So you can see, yeah, it's got the wall and all that stuff in here. You can see how those are lining up perfectly with the, it's actually pretty nice. Pretty cool, man. Yeah, so you can see that's our geometric line. That outside edge of the pit boxes, you can see the walls. Here, actually what I'll do for the geometry of the track, let's do this. I'll select this, and let's just put a generic, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, just to kind of give some contrast. There we go. Just kind of get that texture off of there. So basically what we have, this is where I cut out all the pit stalls, you know, from that object, and I already deleted all those polys to narrow it down to just that outside painted edge of the pit stalls. So this is why you see the ground plane right here, right? So you can see how much it's, these lines, these new lines that I'm putting down there need to come down on this end. It's snapped to this edge, but just not down here. So pretty simply, what I could do, and I can do this later, I'm just going to show this now. I can select this plane, plane 2 in this case. So right there, I'm going to zoom in on that with the Z key. Now I can adjust this end by selecting these verts and just move this down. That might be... Oh, you know what? There's no geometry there. Okay, hold on. Forgot about that. Well, we do have the wall, right? So, let's see. Oh, I see what's going on. So what we got in here is... Hold on a minute. What they phone? Yeah, so here's the... Yeah, these are the lines that were in the track. So yeah, we don't really need to go by those necessarily. These are the lines that showed up in the geometry that didn't have the concrete pink applied to it. It was still that TSD paint. So that's what these lines are. So because the polys that I took out that only existed with the concrete pink, that's all it's missing. So these lines are the original TSD paint that I had laid down loosely this way. Let's go back to here. So in Sandbox, I laid these lines down manually. Let's go ahead and bring... let's do it this way. So these lines right here, that's what those these here represent. We don't necessarily need those per se. So let's go ahead. Yeah, so those are all in the original geometry, and like I said, we don't need those. Don't need those. Whoops. Yeah, this is something that's a little wonky sometimes too with 3ds Max. If you don't have anything locally selected, it tends to, as far as when you try to navigate, spin it around there. When you got something focused like that, it's a little bit easier to... Okay, so what we don't need are those. But you can kind of use it as a guide, I suppose. But the fact that we do have the geometry for the wall, we can necessarily snap the verts of these new lines that we're putting in there to this edge, this bottom edge of the pit wall. We can do that. So let's do that. We're going to select, you can do this one of two ways. Whoops. I'm going to go like this, select that plane. Wait, where's our plane 2? Right here. Select this one. We'll do it this way. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So what I can do here is I can snap to that edge. Hello. There. So I can snap it there. And snap it here. There. So now that's lined up with that bottom edge of the pit wall, or the geometric wall. Right? So as far as the thickness of it and all that should be pretty good. And again, we want to ignore, I guess, these lines that we roughly put in via sandbox. We don't need those. What we want to put in is these. And once these are all done in this fashion, that's going to be is basically going to conform 100% to the geometry of the track, and you're not going to get that the breathing of the track. Remember, so as far as by using TSDs in the traditional sense, you're not going to get that. It's going to hug the geometry more so, as opposed to wonk out on you. And you can do this to every line that you put down. And again, I'm just showing these two lines just to kind of show the process. So we already got it snapped here. Let's do the same thing for this one. We'll select this one. Oops, I'm going to go ahead this way. Select it like so. Put the vertex. Alright, what are you doing here? Alright. So I might just have to go this way. Plane 4. Why is it not showing me the vertex? Hello? Or is it into the wall? Hold on a second. Where's the vertex? Hello? Selecting it down there, but why is it not selecting on this side? Yeah, we got the vertexes down here. There should be 2 down here. Where are they? Where are they at? Where the heck is the vertex? Oh, there it is. How the heck is it right there? What the... So that's inside the wall. That's not cool. Alright, so let's bring this out. So apparently the vertex is right there. What the heck is going on? Hold on. Something ain't right here. Gotta love this. What in the world? Okay, there's the vertex. Yeah, it's inside the wall, I get that, but I don't know why it's not wanting to snap to that edge. And like I said, you can use the one that we had down there as a guide, I suppose. Alright. Yeah, I don't know, somehow it got way into the wall there. Weird. Yep, so it is snapping to the edge. That's how it turns green like that. That's how you know it's snapped to the edge. Yes, that's kind of weird. Yeah, it's doing a lot of stuff that it wasn't doing for me earlier, which is maybe good. You know, it kind of show what you might necessarily deal with, because as far as doing this type of stuff. But that's that one basically in place. That's the 2 lines basically in place there. And again, you don't want to kind of ignore these lines. Those are the ones that were loosely placed based on sandbox. So it's these painted lines, these new planes that you want to go by, right? So again, that's just kind of give 2 examples, you know, and you would do the same thing all the way through, as far as all the way around the track, as far as to lay those lines down. So with all that done, I will go ahead and save this one, because we still have, let's see what I got here. Pit stalls 2, these are the ones I already have done. Right? Okay. So what I can do from here is I'm going to hide these 2. Whoops. Hello. So I'm going to hide these 2. Okay. And then these. Just want to make sure here. So yeah, what I got here That's that outside edge. Cool. And this one should be all the ones I have done. Here we go. Yep. Perfect. Yep, so these are all done. I already got these snapped into place. Trying to... Alright, let me see what I got here. I got... Let me hide this. Yeah, there we go. These are the lines I want right there, as far as the ones that are selected. So these... If I can highlight these better. Yeah. Those are what I want. This is our outside edge. That's track geometry. You know, the reason I know this is the track geometry is it's got the 3D SimEd tag to it. This object, that's the pit stalls themselves. Yep, so that's the original pit stalls themselves before I did anything. So I want to keep that as well. This is reference, if anything. So that's without those polys removed, right? So when I detached this originally, that's so I have those two pieces is what it basically boils down to. So I can hide that. So I have this one as its own object, right? Okay, and then I got these lines that I want to keep. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save this scene as it is again. Save it. Like so. Alright, now what I can do is I can start chunking things out so I can just keep what I want to actually export out of this as a 3DS so I can make a pass export. That's what we're trying to get to at this point. With all these done, and they're in the positions that you want, okay, we can now start chunking out what we don't need and isolate that as a 3DS. So I'm gonna load all these in and keep everything. I shouldn't say everything, but only keep this pit stalls too. Everything else we can get rid of. Okay. So if we delete, oh, I think I did the wrong thing, so I'm gonna do Control Z. What did I miss here? Selected the wrong. Oh no, I did it wrong. So I need pit stalls 2 is what I want to keep. Delete, and that's all I want to keep right there. That's what I'm going to make into an object. Okay. So, with all that out there, and I'm just making sure that's all I have in the scene currently. I already have that saved, like I said. We don't have anything hidden. Cool. The only other thing that's left is I want to name this. This doesn't really matter. It's kind of semantics, I guess you want to say, as far as what you want to name this object. That's what will be applied to the actual object once you create the 3DO. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as that. Pit stalls 2 is fine. In fact, I can probably just take the 2 off of it, just for the heck of it. Just do pit stalls, and then we'll export this out as a 3DS. That's what we need. It'll maintain the mapping for that object as well as everything in that's present in the scene there anyway. So to the desktop. Actually, I have a folder for this. I'm going to save this as a 3DS. So I'm going to have to bring that 3DS into an older version of Max. In this case, I'm using Max 5 so that I can pass export that. Okay, so I'm going to name this as Pit Stalls. Same as the model name that I've got. Keep it all consistent. And I'll get into, as far as like, there's not going to be any population or weaken switches or anything like that, and it's going to be part of the geometry. So we don't want that to be able to press, turn it off or make it invisible. I guess in the game, if I had to press the O key or whatever like that, it's just going to be like a part of the geometry. So it's just going to be a straight up pass export, create the 3DO type of thing. And I'm going to go through that process here shortly. So export this out as a 3DS. Yes, I do. And it's going to tell me This is normal. It's basically the same. And in 3DS format, it'll only allow so many characters for the name of the texture. That doesn't matter because when you go through pass export, it'll maintain whatever texture name that you have to it. So this is not of any concern. So just close that out. That's perfectly fine. So now I should have a 3DS in this here, which should be right there. And what I'll do is I'm gonna close out max 14 here in this case. Go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do a reset. No, don't want to save that. I already have that scene saved prior to me deleting all that stuff out. I'm gonna close this out, and I'm gonna open max 5 and open this 3DS. Import that 3DS, and then we're gonna make ourselves a pass export. So we're gonna load this up for a second and go from there. Not even one stream, barely one stream I guess in so far, and I got and this is normal too. This is just the plugins for the pass exporter, and that's fine. So we just want to do yes, okay, we're fine on that. Let's click yes on those. Okay. This is something, to be perfectly honest, I have not tested in max 5 yet as far as doing this. So this is going to be hit or miss, I guess, with this new card as far as if this works in max 5. I'm assuming it will. Everything works in 14, so that should be good. But like I was saying, with the subs so far, I haven't gotten barely one stream into that. I've already gotten the 2 subs, be it from James not too long ago, and also Torch. So appreciate that. Don't want to forget, I guess, to mention appreciation for that. Okay, so what we want to do is import, navigate to that folder. I got so many projects going on here, it's not even funny. Got a lot of farm sim stuff. I'm telling you, I've been all over the place ever since I got this card, and I've had a lot of things in waiting. What the heck did I do with my folder? Here it is. There we go. So there's our 3DS, and we want to completely replace, convert the units. Cool. That should be in meters. I'm going to check that right away, because if it's not, we need to fix that. Yep, we are in meters, and we're in meters. Cool. So we're all good there. So now that we got this in here, I'm gonna just maximize this perspective view, like so. And what the heck? You can barely see them in here. You can see just the highlights of it's in here though. You can see the lines. It's not much to it. It's all just those lines. You can kind of see the black shadow of them. So what we need to do prior to pass exports, we need to apply the texture to it. Okay, so we're going to go into the material editor. This should all be refresher actually. And we want to go to that folder again. This one I can't resize, okay. So we should be right here. And this is what we want to apply to it. TSD pit stall. Apply that to it. Definitely do want to always make sure that your texture is applied in the name that you want it to be, and so on, prior to pass export. Otherwise, if you don't put a texture to it, it's going to be a generic texture, and you're going to have a bear of a time trying to get any texture that you even make a MIP for to actually apply, even though the mapping and whatever is still there. So you always want to make sure that your texture is applied prior to pass export. Okay, so that is applied. I'm just going to double check the name of the model itself, which is pit_stalls, like I did when I exported, so that's fine. So you can change that here as well prior to past exports to make sure you got it named to what you want. Okay, so now that's all done. We can export this as a pass file. Let's go ahead and export, and we're going to navigate right to that same folder. It's kind of our working folder. pit stall, TSL, there we go. And we're going to change this to pass. And that's assuming that you've got all the pass export plugins set up on your version of 3ds Max that you're going to use. Anything up to Max 2008 does tend to work with the pass exporter. So what I'm going to do for here is, be it the fact that I'm not using a script, I'm not using a PSG, that will assign the name to the 3DO via the script itself. Because I'm not using one of those, whatever you name your pass file upon you export it, that's then going to be the name of your 3DO. So you want to use, you know, some naming conventions as far as what you name it. You can still name your pass file after you export it. I'm just saying you want to pay attention, I guess, to what you're naming your the naming convention you're using for, as opposed from using just straight up pass as opposed to script. Because your PSG, you'll have to name your 3DO via the output function. Appropriate when you use a pass file, you don't do that. It goes basically by the name of the pass file itself. So just again, just another refresher on how that works. So we're gonna name this pit stalls pit underscore STALS. Okay. And then we got that as a pass file, and then save it. Now that should be in our folder. Right here is a pass file. Now I have everything that I need so far. I've got both the bitmap of the texture here as well as the MIP. So as long as you have either one, if not both, when you use the Make 3DO utility with your pass file and or your script, as long as you have that, then you're good to go. So we have everything we need here. I'm going to leave this open for now, but then what I need to do is I need to open up the Make 3DO directory. This is all of our track editing stuff here for the track build. I do need to open up, so I'm going to open up this another window. And I have this, and I know this has been kind of a running joke, if you will, I guess, as far as where you put your installation of your Make 3DO is up to you. I like to put it in the program files, and for my purposes I'll put it in Sandbox. I got the Make 3DO, I have it right here, right within my Sandbox in my program files. So these are technically programs, right? That's my logic behind it. Where you put it might be different. You might put it in a different location, but you will necessarily need to know this location to queue up the Make 3DO, because you do not double click this. It's all through command prompt. So I will need to copy all the files that I need, pass file and the textures, no script, I don't have any PSG, to that Make 3DO directory like so. Now what I need to do is open up a command prompt, and I'm going to go through this process. So now what I need to do is I need to navigate this to that directory. And again, your directory, as far as where you might have it, will be different than what I have. So I'm going to point this to program files, x86, Sandbox, and Make 3DO. Okay, so now that I'm in that directory, now I can call up, being in the fact that I'm in that directory, I can call up the Make 3DO utility, Make 3DO, and in this case we're using a pass file, so it's a -p, and the name of the actual pass file is pit stalls, pit_stalls.pass. Now I don't have any other parameters. I don't have an environment map or anything along with that, so there's no other parameters at the end of it, so that's all I need as far as the Make 3DO utility to just press enter, and what it does is it spits out that 3DO. Now if you have the 3D SimAd utility, the application, you can double click this because I have the MIP in here, but even with the bitmap it'll open, so that'll load. You don't ever want to go by how it appears in here 100%. You can look at this to make sure that it loads into 3D Sim Ed with no problems, no errors come up or like that. That's about it. As far as like the appearance of it, the orientation of it, don't 100% rely on what is in 3D Sim Ed. You want to fully get it applied to the track and go from there. Okay. All right, so we're good here. Another way you can do it is to actually use the View 3D. There's a View 3D utility right within your Sandbox utilities. You can do a View 3D. That's all done through command prompt as well. In fact, I can show that right away. In the Make 3DO, I can just do View 3D. And anything that is in the Make 3DO, if I remember this right, I haven't used this utility in a while. So if I open up the View 3D, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. So it's not in the Make 3DO, so it's in the root of the Sandbox. My bad. So I got to do a change directory. Let's go ahead and do that. Cord's getting in the way here, so I want to do change directory on
With
this.
YouTube Music Premium, explore your favorite albums, music videos, and more.
Nice ads.
Even when you're offline or lock your screen. And get it all ad-free. YouTube Music Premium,
Hold on a
free for
second.
30 days and just $9.99 a month.
No, I don't want
after.
to do that.
Cancel
So
anytime.
yeah, what you would have
Restrictions
to do is actually point to wherever you got your View 3D and then just look at it that way. I'm not gonna go through that, to be honest. I don't use it as much. I tend to just go ahead and use the 3D Sim Ed utility, but you can do that. You can just use a View 3D, and wherever you can load in your view from the View 3D as far as your 3DO, and then just go from there. Basically, use like if you ever used a car viewer for Inner 2003, it's much the same thing. So yeah, for the purpose of this, I won't go through that. But that's basically how that works, just using that. You can't double click on this, for example. I guess maybe you can. Maybe make it a liar out of me. Oh, but damn, okay. Usually what I'll do is do it through command prompt, but I guess you can necessarily use, I'm realizing too, I got some reflap items in here too. I'm not sure why. These are from, interesting. I have no idea how those got in there. I'm gonna go ahead and delete those. Those are old, obviously. I have no idea how those got in there. Reflaps are basically when you use the reflap utility within Inner 2003 itself, it usually will spawn those into the track that you're actually in a testing mode with. The fact that these got in, I might have tried to use the replay, yeah, the LP to R, or replay to LP or something like that. Yeah, I might have done that. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go ahead and take these out though. This is no concern to me, I guess, of anybody. Those LP files do not belong in this directory, so. But yeah, I guess you can open this View 3D. I didn't realize that. The Make 3DO utility, you definitely can't. You have to go through that command prompt like I showed you, because you have to put the parameters in there for what you want it to do. But the View 3D, I guess you can load the object, and then it'll automatically already go, in most cases, right to the Make 3DO directory, which this happens to do, so I can load this in there. Now it'll be in here, but the controls for it are kind of not very friendly. Let's just put it that way. You can't use the zoom, like the scroll mouse or anything like that. There are particular keys for that, and I don't remember what they are, and that's as far as I'm going to go with that. But it is loaded in here, but you would have to zoom in and out. I don't remember what all the keys were, to be perfectly honest. But that's another reason why I don't use it as much as I do looking at a 3D Sim Ed utility, or just going ahead and loading it into the track and going that way. But the View 3D utility is there, so I'll leave that at your discretion, I guess, to figure. I know there is a keystrokes in there, and maybe I could probably give some more information, I guess, as far as what those keys are. So like I said, I haven't used it in quite some time, and there is some documentation for it as far as which keys they are. I just don't have them readily available. Let's see. I don't think there's anything in here, no. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think there is. It might have something in here. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in here. This is all for the Make 3DO. This is all original documentation that came with Sandbox way back when. So yeah, I don't think it has any of that in there. So I'll have to see if I can come up with some information on that View 3D. I know there is specific key controls as far as to navigate within that program. I'm just not 100% sure at this point. So I'll just go ahead and exit out of that. We do know that the object should be good, so I'm going to go ahead and take our 3DO. I'm going to cut that from here and put that. Why did the music pause? Hey, music, what's up? Hold on. That was weird. Huh. So I guess I haven't. This is all use you playlist, so anyway, so now we have our 3DO, which we named it as pit stalls, and we got our texture. So we're going to take this TSD pit stall. I think it's already in there because it's being used already. Let me see here. So TSD pit stall. Maybe not. No, I did not put it in there yet. Cool. Alright, so yeah, what I'll have to do is put the texture in here. So I need the 3DO as well as the texture. And I named it TSD even though it's not technically a track surface decal. But keeping with the conventions as far as like what the way you would normally put it on there, and this is kind of a hybrid method of putting it in the form of a 3DO. That's kind of why I've used TSD pit stall, because you may necessarily find to want to use this to kind of fill any gaps that might exist on the pit road, for example. You know, so like anything like in between the openings or anything like that, you might want to use that same texture as a TSD. So instead of creating a duplicate of that texture and having it used for both the object as well as a TSD, just use the one. So that's kind of why I went with just naming the texture TSD pit stall as opposed to just pit stalls as the name of the 3DO suggests. So that's kind of the method of my madness for that. You want to optimize the track as much as possible. If you don't have to duplicate a texture to do the same thing as something else, it's using for something else, then that's necessarily what you want to do. So we're going to put both these items into the track, and we're going to go ahead and place this. Now, you're going to find pretty quickly as far as how this is going to work. So what I did was when I laid these down here, it should be at 0. So we're going to go ahead and look at this and actually prove this point. I'm going to do a new, reopen this original. Okay, so we want to open this here without the pink or the magenta for the pit stalls. Okay, and then we're going to go into object placement. That is an object. 3DO is an object. It's going to be fixed, and we're going to right click into the track here, and we want to add a trackside object. Scroll down to our pit stalls 3DO, and there we go. We should have them in there. Now we'll have to orient them via the properties of it. So right now, that's the infield. So we got to go to our pit stalls. That's the only two 3DOs we've got in here, the pit stalls and the infield object. So this is going to be fixed. And see how all these here, you know, we got the X and Y, have actually got a coordinate on it. Because when we brought it in there, when we right clicked, it's just trying to roughly put that into place. So the fact that in 3ds Max, if you remember, we had the object set at 0. At least I think we did. We got to check that. A second here. Hello? There we go. So yeah, it's set completely at 0, and we want to leave it that way. This is part of the geometry. the pivot right here, since it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to need to be moved. We want that exactly in that position, right? So we got this all at 0. So what we need to do is orient the object in Sandbox the same way. So we gotta, uh-oh, looks like your scaling's off. Are you kidding me? Why is the scaling off? Alright, hold on a second. This is our object right here. What the freak? Okay, hold on. Something happened. Yeah, our scaling got messed up here. So let's see what we got. So 0.0. Yeah, I think our scaling got messed up. Holy crap. Uh-oh. Yeah, the scaling definitely got messed up. Holy crap. This is the size of our object. That's our bounding box. So something didn't work out right. Alright, so we got to look at our unit measurements. Let's do a new, do a no. Something happened in... And I think it originates from Max 14. Because this is all set up properly. Dag nabbit. I got units set up. Meters. Yep, so this is fine. Yeah, I think
Isn't it nice when you can keep
I think it
things
originates
simple?
from Max 14.
Well, now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for $0 a month. It's
Gotta
free.
love ads.
See what I mean?
We were doing good there for a little while. Really? Okay, it's going back. Alright, so what we need to do is we need to go back to 14. We need to check out the unit measurements, unit setup. No, I didn't have that. I think because I messed with the units because I was doing some farm sim stuff in 14. I think I did not set that right. I thought I had all the meters, but I must not have. I didn't have an adopt on this one here, so it was automatically already assuming. So that's why I got to check in 14. So let's do a new, do a not save. Yes, and I'm gonna exit out of this. Yeah, something I think I'm screwed up in Max 14. Dagnabbit. I thought I fixed all that. Hope that didn't screw up. Son of a gun, anyway. Okay, hold on. God, I hope it didn't. Crap. And that's going to be a bummer because I saved over... I thought I had all that set up, though. I know, like I said, I was doing some farm sim stuff, and it uses centimeters as opposed to meters. But I thought I switched all that. Okay, this is on meters. That's on meters. What the heck? What the heck's the deal? Yeah, that's all set to meters. What the heck happened there? Alright, let's open that scene. Yeah, there's no reason it should have done that. I'm gonna be so upset if this rescaled because I resaved that. It was already set to meters, so it shouldn't have been an issue. Where's my folder? There it is. Huh. This is not going to be cool if that... Oh, no. Crap. I think it might have... Alright, I gotta apply something here. Let me think here. I need to get some, crap. Unhide. I don't know how I can check for scale. I don't understand why it did that. Hold on here. Unit setup, meters. expecting. Yeah, that's all set up right. Why? Oh my god. Why is it not? Where's my grid anyway? There's my grid. That is small. Look at that. Why in the heck is it doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Because I think it's small. Maybe not. It's centered in here. Alright, I need to take a measurement. Let's do this. I got an idea. We got sandbox here. We're going to check something here. So this is at... We're going to check the dimension, I guess, of this here. So we have... 202.71. Actually, yeah, I did stretch this out a little bit. Second here. We're going to get down to the bottom of this here. Geometry view. There we go. Geometry view is the only view that you can use to adjust the linear guide. So 195.58. So we're gonna go like this. Okay, let's go top down. All right, and we're gonna create a plane. Let's change this here. We're gonna figure some things out here, folks. So we're gonna at least come to the conclusion if this has been rescaled. So if I can put this in here and it matches on this the model of the track as it does in Sandbox, then I know that's scaling's fine. So if I go 1-1 there, so if I do this, so far it looks like it's fine. Yeah, we'll just make this a little bit bigger. So this needs to be 190. What did I say? 195. 195.58. Okay. So let's change this to 195. Whoops. Okay, so that's good. That scaling's fine that way. So in here it's fine. So what is it doing wrong? Yep. So basically what I'm checking right here, the measurement that I have in Sandbox, right? 195.58 in this direction. That's what I just checked in Max. So I know the model is correct. So that means everything else should be scaled properly. Alright. So we're good there. Clearly, when we loaded that 3DO in, it was super small. So that's what I gotta figure out now. So what I can do from this point, I can just delete this. Now we confirm that that's good. We need to delete out. Yeah, we need to delete out what we don't need. This pit stalls 2 is what I need. We're gonna have to go through this process again. So delete all that out. So the only thing we're left is this. That's at 0. Cool. Alright, we're gonna rename this. Alright, let's export that out as a 3DS. Okay. Navigate back to that folder. Something happened, that's all I know. But obviously it was super small, it scaled it way down. That's usually a product of the unit measurements or whatever not set properly. That's usually why that happens. Okay, so we're gonna resave this. Oh crap. Alright, hold on. I still got some stuff hidden. Yep, got this stuff hidden. So I gotta delete that stuff too. No problem. There we go. Make sure we just got pit stalls. See, I didn't check it like I did last time, so Unhide, so nothing in there. Cool. See, and that's usually another way you can tell that you still got things in the scene. Is like when you get all those errors like I did for the textures, but yet you don't see them. It's probably hidden. So you want to make sure any hidden items are out of your scene before you pass or 3ds export or even pass export, because it will include all that in your final object. So you want to make sure all that stuff is out, which I did originally. I just didn't do it just that time. So we want to export this out as 3ds, and it's still going to give me a name here, which is fine. It's just telling me it doesn't like the name of that texture, which is, again, that's fine. So I'm just going to verify. I did resave this as a new 3ds. Did, cool. Alright. Cool beans. Now, what I can do... Yep, I need to reset this so we can get out of this one. Just checking some things out. Alright, so now we gotta open Max 5 again. We gotta figure out what in the heck happened. So we know what's good in Max 14 as far as the scale, right? We verified, I guess, the size in Sandbox as compared to. So yeah, this is all yes. That's for the plugins. Yes. All right, so that's all good. So now we're in here. Now what I'm gonna have to do before I do anything is I need to check the scale. I guess without having the, I can't import the track model into Max 5, so I gotta try something different. Import. Man, I got too many folders. Here we go. So there's our 3DS. We want to completely merge and convert units. I might have to have this unchecked. Maybe that's what I did wrong. We do not want to convert units. So just completely replace the scene. And I think that might have been what I did wrong. I had this checked and I didn't want to do that. So error on my part. Okay, so just going through the whole process and just kind of going through the whole process slower. I think this is what I had checked and I didn't want to have that. So this is what I want, like this. So I think that's what I necessarily did wrong. Yeah, I got a strong feeling this will work now. Alright, so cool. Let's go through this process now. So we got pit stalls, name of that, cool. Now we're gonna go into material editor, apply our texture. Yeah, I think that is what I did wrong, is I had that convert units checked, and I don't want that. Pretty sure that's what it was. Alright, so let's do this. Apply that texture to our model. And I can verify that that's something I didn't show either, just to verify that the texture is actually applied to the model. I think I can go to... I don't think there's orthographic view in 5. So I can just render this as close as possible. Let's do this 800, 600. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell in there probably, I'm sure, but it is on there. Just to kind of verify that the texture is actually on here. Okay, so again, we are at 0, 0, 0, I guess, as far as the orientation of that, and that's what I was trying to get to. I guess, of course, we got the model mesh, name what we want. Texture is applied. Now we're going to export that pass. Navigate to that folder. And we want to switch this to pass. We should already have one. We're going to overwrite it. Yes. Leave that open. And then we're going to go ahead and go through that process again. So we should have, we're going to delete this one. That one's not good. Okay. And then we're going to copy this pass file to our make 3DO. Yes, that's newer. Overwrite that. And we want to do... Oh, I don't know if this how this is going to work. Let me let me check something here real quick. Just real quick here. I need, because I got one of my hotkeys set up for Give me a second here, folks. Because I know that is going to screw some things up if I push that. Just got to find it here. Where the heck did it go? At least it should be in here. F6, F5, 10, 2. Where the heck did you go? What the heck? That's weird. Alright, I know it's in here somewhere. Oh well. Well, just for the sake of it, what I was trying to do is I know I have a F8 is what you want to use, I guess, to bring up anything that you previously typed in your command prompt, and that's what I wanted to use. I know I have something assigned to that key, and I don't want to screw up the stream, whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and retype it. But just be aware, I guess, as far as that you do have the option of using in your command prompt screen. Here you can use the F8. That'll bring up. You can cycle through as far as everything that was previously typed within that dialog, and that way you don't have to type again. I'm just going to go ahead and type again, just for the sake of I don't want to bork the stream up whatever by pushing that. I have it assigned to something, but I can't find it in my OBS as far as my streaming software, so I'm just gonna I'll have to find that later, see what the heck I did there. But I'm just gonna go ahead and type this so I can see this up here as far as what I typed in previously. I'm just gonna type that in again. So make 3DO. There's a lot of things I gotta change some of my hotkeys or whatever as far as like that, because it steps on a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'll have to get that sorted out. Shaking off the rust, if you will. Alright, so data pop pass. There we go. So it'll spit out a new 3DO. There we go. Just out of curiosity, what was the size? You can open up my recycle bin here and see how what was the size of. That was the same size. That may be good or bad. That was the same size as what this one is. Don't tell me it did that again. That's really going to confuse me. That is really going to confuse me. Alright, so let's cut this. We're going to try it again. And put that in here. Paste. Yep, it's the same size, so that's usually not a good indication, but we'll see. We'll see. So what I'm going to do for the sake of this is close this out. I'm going to reopen Sandbox just to refresh it. Just to remove all that cache, I guess, of information that's in there. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen this PTF. Give this a second or two. Alright, give that a second to load. I at least want to get it to the point where I can get it loading properly, you know, and they should be applied, you know, should be physically applied, I guess, to that location without just setting it to 000. And that's fine, that's what we want. Alright, so go into object view, object placement view, I should say, and then right click, navigate to pit stalls. There we go. Yeah, it's much better. Much better. Okay, so now all we got to do is orient it to the 000. So yeah, just a little bit of a note. Like I said, when I imported the 3DS into Max 5 in my case, the fact that I had convert units check marked on the first try, that's probably why it rescaled it. Not really sure what's going on with that, but you want to necessarily make sure that you're only completing the scene, completely replace the scene when you're importing, and then uncheck that convert units, and then you shouldn't have a problem. So all I need to do in this case, I'm on the infield, I gotta go to pit stalls, set this to fixed, and set this all to 0. So that's the orientation of that we had set in the max. And those should be all in position then. And there we go. They're all right in position. So we can look at this in the camera. Let's click out of this here. Get the bounding box off it. Now we can look around here and we can see exactly how this looks. So here's the entrance to pit road. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? Some of them are kind of clipping down. We might have to adjust those manually, and that's fine. And I may necessarily have to adjust the texture so that it matches the discoloration that Sandbox and or NR 2003 graphics engine tends to do. So I might have to adjust that texture so it kind of matches a little better. But for the most part, you can see doing it this way, it's kind of matching. So I might just have to adjust the snaps, you know, on these edges here. I might have to bring that up just a tad because it tends to clipping in here. And that's all about that breathing I was talking about earlier of the track itself. And another thing to keep in mind though, don't necessarily go ahead and start editing because of what you see in Sandbox. Check it in the game first, okay? Because this is another thing. The way the track tends to render and or breathe, you know, as you're in the game, it might show differently in the game. So I can necessarily probably show that really quick too. We'll put this PTF as well as the object and the texture that we created for this and check it out in the game and see if we have the same, if it's presenting itself the same way in Sandbox. You don't 100% want to go what you see in Sandbox. Definitely want to check it out in the sim. So don't immediately start saying, oh crap, that needs to be adjusted. And this is pretty much with anything that's Sandbox and or NR 2003 related. Always check it out in the sim itself. But yeah, for the most part, these are all in place. Only thing we will probably have to consider is just adjusting the texture itself so that it's not so bleached to get it to match closer, I guess, to what you know, is on the painted lines here. So they tend to go together, if you will. But for the most part, yeah, all these are in place. Very nice. Yeah, see, so some of them are clipping under the actual geometry surface and whatnot. So yeah, we're gonna check this out in the game, in the sim itself. So we're gonna save this. Gotta make sure we save it. Go back to geometry view, and just for the hell of it, I'm gonna go ahead and turn roll back on, and we're gonna save this as a new PTF. Always, always, always don't ever save over an existing PTF because it's asking for trouble. You want to always have something to go back onto if something's not right. So I'm gonna name this one add pit stalls. You can name it however you want, whatever makes it easier as far as to understand, I guess, is what you did in that session, right? So this, just to confirm that that's the new PTF. There's our new PTF. Okay, so what we'll do is, this will be my final thing that I'll do for the stream, is to go in the game and check it out. And we'll go on from there. Hope that sounds good to y'all. So we're gonna go into the game itself and put, I already have the track in here, but I need to apply our new PTF. So what I'm going to do, in this case, is just back this one up, just so I have it. Now I do have this same PTF, be it the fact that it's in the early stages of development here. I still have this PTF here that I just renamed in here. So I still have it there, but just because I got it in two, I got a working directory as far as my track editing directory and my sim directory. So as far as testing in the sim, they're two different locations, right? And that's done for good reason. And I've mentioned this before as far as the benefits of having a projects folder as opposed to working directly from the tracks directory itself. It's going to save you a lot of headaches in the long run, trust me. You don't never have to worry about stepping on stuff like that. You'll have like a backup, an automatic backup is something, so that if you're working only from one area, be it especially in the tracks directory itself, and then you save that, you know, constantly to that directory, you're just kind of inviting yourself against a headache as far as like not having something to fall back on. So making backups of backups and having 2 separate locations, that's going to save a lot of that headache. As far as to be like, oh crap, what did I do? Alright, so what I need to do is take this new PTF along with all the things that I added, which would be this TST paint and oh, my bad. I made a PST pit stall, my bad. So in this case, this kind of goes against what I was talking about as far as like using a texture that's already in existence here. The fact that it has this TST paint, the TST paint is used for the start finish line. This can necessarily be redone, and I will have to do that actually to make this TST pit stall. Because like I was showing you, as far as like I would have to adjust that texture anyway to match the other TSD pit line that's out there to match. So that's going to be its own texture. This one here is using for the start finish line, even as a placeholder for now. So the fact that I have these 2 at least, that's not a redundancy necessarily, because like I said, I will have to adjust this pit stall one to match on our object as far as the painted line that's on the outside edge. So that's not all for nothing. Okay, so we got this and our pit stall. So we need these 2. My bad. We need the PTF, the 3DO, and the texture. That's the 3 things that are new. So copy this over to our games directory, paste, and then we're going to need to rename this PTF to the same name as the track. Now, you can do it this way that I'm doing it, as far as just to back out what doesn't need, or your best bet is to always go this way. Copy the name of your track folder, like that. Do a rename. So either way works. This is probably the best way actually, to ensure that your PTF is named the same as your folder so that it loads properly in the sim. That's probably that latter one that I did there, as far as that last one I did, that's probably the best way to do it. And that's just another refresher. Anyway, so I got everything that I need to test this out in the game. So what I'm going to do, now that I know everything else is correct, I'm going to get out of this. Just, not saving that. No need to. There you go, that works. And that's it. So the only thing I need to do, just for a quick second, is I'm going to go back and go to BRB. I'm going to set up my wheel, and we're going to go in the game and check this bad boy out. So I'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Alrighty, folks, we are back. Okay, let's check this out in the game. I'm gonna keep the background music, I guess, off here while we go checking the names, so we can hear all the sounds into the game. How about that? that's all right with you. So we got this all set up here. I got profile there all set up. We're going to load the sim and go right into the track and try this out. We'll see if what we're seeing in Sandbox is actually what is going on in the game itself. So, okay, why are we not loading? I already had this loaded before. Hello? Hello? Why is it not loading? Fresh. That's weird. There we go. You know what's going on there. Alrighty, so yeah, we're gonna check this out with the Wednesday Cup 98 mod, produced by Splash and Go. Love this mod. It actually works. It's kind of period correct, if you will, as far as somewhat anyway, for the period that Wilkesboro, I guess, was at its heyday, somewhat. Maybe even previous, I guess, to this Wednesday Cup 98 mod. But it wasn't necessarily in the 90s, so that was... we're going to go ahead and test it this way anyway. So we're going to go into just testing for this track. So yeah, this is kind of a preliminary as far as the track shot and all that stuff, I believe. May necessarily consider a different track thing, but this I think will pretty much stay. I think this kind of suits this pretty nicely, I think. So let's go right into it. So the track should load just fine with our pit stalls. I can start to see the pit stall lines there. Cool. And we'll just go ahead and check its setup. Well, yeah, I did do, like I said way earlier in the stream, I did do some adjustments to the setup, primarily to the braking. As far as the front brake bias, it was a little high. So just kind of toned that down a little bit because one of the setups we had in there was just a little too touchy on the brakes, you know, as far as going in the corner, tend to burn the tires up. So that's one of the main things that I did adjust in the setup, but that's why I got it on a fast and new. So yeah, let's go ahead and load this up here. Let's go check our lines out. So yeah, I don't believe I had a line on the leading edge, you know, on the pit stalls there. It was primarily just behind here. So let's go with this view. Let's see one behind me here. Yep, so it is kind of pretty much showing up the same way as it is in Sandbox so far. At least right there it is. Let's go all the way around. Sorry guys. Get some practice later. Let's go all the way around to the pit entrance here. So this will give you a little bit of a preview, I guess, as far as how it looks in the sim. So this is coming into pit entrance. Let's see what we got here. Yep, so looks like it is presenting itself in much the same fashion. See, we got some clipping below the track surface there. So that might be something we'll have to address there, I guess, as far as... I'm just going to take a reference here. Let's back up here again. I'm going to count how many in some of these are. Like, I'm going to check... Yeah, but so far it does seem to be they're presenting the same way as they are in Sandbox, which not a big deal. This can be adjusted. But it's much easier to do it in the form of a 3DO than it is actually... Because the traditional way, as far as probably a TSD, you would have to, you know, move it, test it, and you would do that over and over again. See, usually with this, it's somewhat the same, but it's not. It's more. It's limited in that fashion now, because I'll only have to lift that up a little bit, and that'll be the end of it. So like, that's the second one in. Just want to take some reference. Yep. Oh wait, that's the third one in. Okay, hold on. So the second one in, third one in. It's clipping down towards that edge. So second and third, fourth, fifth one is way down. Okay, so that fifth one is way down. So that's probably more of a bigger reference on that. So we're just going to take a look at this on the outside here. Let's keep that up. So let's look in Sandbox here. So the fifth one in, I still got the game running. I want to look in the camera. Oops, wrong one. What? Bring this this up, I'm going to bring up the camera view. So the 5th one in is way down on the pit entrance. So that's exit. Yeah, I didn't put a line on this one, this edge, which we could necessarily just put a TSD there. That may not be an issue. So let's go to pit entrance here, and this is the 5th line in. So we have 1. Yep, 2nd and 3rd are down, so we need to bring those up a little bit. This one's a little bit down, a little bit further, looks like. But yeah, the 2nd and 3rd ones are definitely down, so those have to be brought up on this end, which is not a big deal. It could be easily adjusted. So 2nd and 3rd. The 5th one was way down, which is this one. See, it's a little bit different in here. So it's not quite as extreme as it's showing in the game. Because in the game, it's showing a lot more of this not showing. So probably just move that up just a tick. So probably just a couple thousandths or something like that. A couple hundreds or a couple thousandths on that end. That should be good. But yeah, for the most part, not too bad. I think for first go at it, that's actually a pretty decent result. Yeah, so we'll just have to go through each one, and I'll have to mark down which ones actually need to come up, and I can count those independently in the game, in the sim itself, and adjust them same way. Just count how far up, I guess, from the exit, and just adjust it accordingly. That's not really a big issue. It looks like they're probably all down about the same amount. So, yeah, that shouldn't really be an issue. That'll be the next step then. So I think that's pretty much all I intend to want to go over, I guess, in this session. That's to get to that point as far as to get them, get those lines actually in the game. Even from this point, if you wanted to, you could still apply the actual stall locations, as far as the track INI. Those lines aren't going to change all that much, as just as far as to bring up the one end and the one edge of it, so that's not clipping into the geometry. And that's pretty simple. I mean, that's the lines are pretty much where they need to be as far as like that goes. So you can still see the location. So you can necessarily use a jig or whatever method you want to use. I tend to use a jig that has the wall object, I guess, onto the onto it, so I can position it properly. And I can do those, place those all individually or move it down the line. Curved pits, whatever, I definitely like to use this method that I've used for, laying these types of lines down, just for ease of being able to, because the TSDs can get really, really shifty and kind of not so nice to do with, because to try and move it just a little bit to get it to not float or get wonked out of shape or whatever, it's so much more difficult. It's more precise with using a 3DO. As far as a 3D object as opposed to that, and that's to better deal with and accommodate, I guess, what you see in as far as in the game and what have you with the track, the way it renders in the game and such. It's and it's a little bit different. If anything, what to take from that is always check it in the sim itself to see how it presents itself as to whether or not these things need to be adjusted. Don't immediately assume that once you get it in the sandbox that it's out of shape. Yes, granted, a lot of these things are out of shape, even as we see in here, but they're not. In some cases, they're not as much. They're not as much out of shape as they are in sandbox as they are in the sim. So that's to give you some baseline as far as like how much it actually does need to be adjusted when you check it in the sim as compared to sandbox. So if anything, that's what to take from that. So let's see, let's get out of pause. Hello? I don't want to return. What is going on? There we go. Why was that not working? Son of a gun. Alright, so yeah, here we go. Let's go, let's do a lap or two around this thing and just kind of give you guys an idea of this run through. I know James had put out a pretty good trailer, I guess, of sorts about this thing here, but I can kind of show you. You can really see the downslope. This is on the front stretch. Start finish line would be to my right. You can really see that downslope of the elevation, and that's that's I can't even think of the word. It's like that's the nature, I guess, of the beast of this track, as far as how it actually is in real life, how it was in real life. So yeah, this is turn 1, coming out of pit exit. This is into turn 2. Going down the back stretch, you're going uphill all the way through this end of the track. This is coming down out of turn 4. There's the start-finish line into turn 1. Turn 1, you're obviously downhill, I guess, going through this. Back to uphill, up the back straightaway. This is all uphill. Back to downhill, coming out of turn 4, down the front straightaway. And that's a couple laps over at Northworks Row.
7, 5.
Just to give you all a little taste of what's going on with it. Hope that was good enough for y'all. It's a really fun track to drive on. I mean, it's really smooth. It's not super. You know, there's some. You do have to do some two-stepping. At least that's the way I like to do it. As far as like with the brake and that, you don't want to get heavy on the brake. That's for sure. Definitely don't want to get heavy on the brake. But you, as far as to climb up that hill, whenever like that, you can actually feel the car actually struggle. That's the nature of that track. That's how that works, and that's why I'm sure that's probably why James has taken on the initiative, I guess, to preserve this beast. You know, because it's I want to keep its natural glory, I guess, as far as even if it is in the virtual world. So yeah, that's about all I have for today. I think that's pretty good place to end it as far as like keeping within that 3 to 3.5 hours, a little bit over what I wanted to do, but we had a little bit some technical difficulties with the scaling of the object and what have you, so we kind of pushed through that. You know, it's just one of the things you deal with, I guess, as far as trying to do these things, and it will let you know pretty quickly as far as you know, something's wrong, and it's being able to, like I said, push through that and figure it out and basically carry on. So I think we're all good to go. I'll just have to make some minor adjustments, I guess, to the ups and downs, I guess, of those actual lines, and we're good to go. But even as I said, wouldn't even have to do that right away. You still have the rough locations of those pit stalls. So if I wanted to put a jig in there and actually apply those pit stall locations, those aren't going to change. It does have 43 pit stalls, as per tradition, I guess, in NASCAR and tracks of this nature. So yeah, it's all good to go in that fashion. So it'd be a matter of just tweaking out as far as the pin entrance lines and exit lines and so on for the spotter to cue properly and what have you. That's all going to be the fine tunes that'll get applied to the track, I guess, as we progress here. So yeah, I might necessarily continue make this a kind of a series as far as the development of this track as we go. So if anything, at least every Saturdays for now, this is what I will intend to do as far as to show the progress, I guess, of this thing as I see fit, as far as I'm able to, let's put it that way. I do tend to want to get into a lot more of the streaming. Since I've been off for so much longer, I got so much we want to be able to do, be it in Farm Sim, NASCAR Racing 2003, whatever it happens may be. There's a lot of things that I have on my plate that I would like to show, I guess, as I'm doing it. So do feel free, I guess, to chime in, I guess, next time. If, like I said, if anything, by next Saturday for sure, and I will keep everybody apprised. If you want to check out the socials, I guess I have socials you can check out. Let's see if I got this in here right. I gotta check everything else was working, and I do have some things I do have to fine tune. Do I have that in there? Crap. Or is it just social? I forget now. There they are. So there's all my socials. So if you want to, feel free, I guess, to come join in on the Discord. Follow me on Twitter. Even the SDS Facebook group page. If you want to join that to get any and all the information that is going on with the channel, feel free to join in on those as you wish. And hope to hear from all of you soon. Thanks again, I guess, to all those that have supported the stream. be it Razor James for the latest subscribe, and also Torch, I guess, while I was offline there. Appreciate that support, and we hope to see you all again soon. So I'm just going to go ahead and host on the channel, so feel free to stick around, I guess, for the host after the stream ends. And I want to thank you all for watching. I hope to see you again. Have a great evening.